Welcome everybody to another Boxing Podcast, broadcasting to you live from the True North. It's your good friend, Mr. BDA, and I'm glad everybody could be on board for this one. Fellas, thank you for joining us. We've got a fantastic, and I do mean fantastic show here on October the 25th, Halloween season, Halloween edition for everybody, or near Halloween. It's never too early for Halloween. That's what I always like to say. So, fellas, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be talking about the big fights coming up this Saturday, jam-packed Saturday. A little bit of everything for everybody, so we're going to focus on that. Before we do that, let's get the business out of the way, fellas. You know the drill. Don't forget you can wire a couple of shekels or wave the super chat feature. It's always better if you join the BD membership program. That way you get more bang for your buck. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, because that is the most important thing. The most important thing is you continue to spread that BDA gospel to the uninitiated, all right? Want to give a big shout out to everybody out there in the chat. I'm talking about Pound for Pound King, Sam Rando, Hard Recoil, Pugilism, Sergeant Z USMC, Kyle L, Shadow Combat, Pollo Yo-Yo, Mark T, Alejandro Solis, Earl Stevens, J Colt, Padja, Hard Recoil, Urban Productions, the Quags, shout out to the Quags as well, and there Rod Rook Davis in the house as well, probably jamming to some guitar, King KO, Wayne Fitness, Eric Gomez says, can you give my king props for his comeback for being the champ 2 times? Well, he's not quite the 2-time champion just yet, Eric. If he wins another title, maybe we'll accommodate you. Shout out to Bray. Shout out to Rafael Garza. Many more people to come, I'm sure, fellas. Thank you for joining us. We'll appreciate it. All right. Let's get down to it, fellas. We're going to be starting with the fight that I do believe is a little bit more entertaining there. Hold on a second. Yeah, so if we're going to talk about the Lomachenko fight. I think that's the one we're going to start with, I believe. But I'll leave that up to the callers and the panelists. In fact, speaking of the panelists, let me call a couple of people here. Start cooking with a little hot grease. Hold on a second. Don't forget to hit the like I said. Hit the like. Really appreciate that. Really helps us out. All right, where are we at here? We got Gonzalo dropping by. Gonzalo, you there? All right, he's probably setting up. I'm just going to invite one last person here. Oh, actually, I always forget to invite Stu nowadays. Stu's back, but I forget about it because he's been away for so long. Gonzalo, you there?
Hey, yeah, what's up, Mr. Brady?
What's up, Gonzalo? Thank you for being on, man. Listen, let's start with the Lomachenko fight. Because I think that's the most, some people would say significant fight of the week. He's taken on Jermaine Ortiz, who is undefeated. Apparently, he used to be Lomachenko's sparring partner. So there's some familiarity there between both men. Jermaine Ortiz is an aggressive guy. He's got quick hands. He's got decent footwork too, but he doesn't just rely on it to stay away. He actually likes to pressure guys. He does something that I really like. He gets in close and shoots very short shots, and they're quick in succession. So he smothers you with those little shots. You can't see them coming, and they're hard to counter with big looping shots. So he makes things very, very, very annoying on the inside. And like I say, he's got the quick hands so he can get off those volleys. He's got a decent record. He beat an undefeated fighter in Adorno in a competitive matchup. Then he beat Jamel Herring, I should say, essentially retired him. Now he's taking on another level of boxer in Vasyl Lomachenko, but Lomachenko's been off for about a year, almost a year. He was in the Ukraine-Russian war. Now, of course, he wasn't on the front lines, as far as we know. From what I've heard, he wasn't exactly getting into the shit. So, it's not like he lost or he was mentally shell-shocked, but he was off for a year. So, Gonzalo, what do you expect this Saturday?
I don't know. It's hard to tell because he's getting older. We've been kind of like waiting. I think as boxing fans, when are the first signs of him like being at the tail end of his primes are gonna show, like where he's not firing at all cylinders, where he's kind of looking a little old, but he's still good. But he's still good enough to beat everybody. Well, he's still good enough to beat most people. But the thing is, now he's facing, for example, this guy. He's 5'8". 69-inch reach. He's 26 years old. He's undefeated. Lomachenko, they know what kind of fighter he is, so you kind of have a target on his back. They're going to bring it. So after being a year off, It's another southpaw. This dude's a southpaw. Throws hooks to the body. After being for a year off, that's quite a test, man. It's like what Jimmy says, iron sharpened. I think that's a Bible verse too, from the Bible. It's true, man. If he's gonna prepare himself to fight the likes of a Shakur, another lefty, and maybe a Devin Haney, they're kind of like similar in size to this guy. So he's doing what he's supposed to do, and it all depends how much he put in his training camp with his pops. We know he trains different, and he's a beast. So will he still be the same Lomachenko that we're used to seeing? That question remains to be seen.
That is indeed the big question, and I want to touch on that more. But before I do that, shout out to Earl Stevens in the chat for his contribution with the super chat. He says, in my opinion, Usyk looked like a little rusty after the war. I think Lomachenko will look the same. Well, listen, Lomachenko is a consummate professional, but you can't stay away from the ring too long before it starts catching up to you. Now, to his credit, he did have 2 fights last year in 2021. But right now, he's coming back almost a year off. Supposedly, Paulie Malignaggi said that he heard that to the grapevine, obviously, that Lomachenko's been looking fantastic in training camp. Now, if Lomachenko's in sparring is anything like we've seen him in his fights, then that's pretty good indeed. But like you mentioned, he's been off for a year. And he's taking on a guy in Jermaine Ortiz, by the way, it's not Jermaine Ortiz, who's got quick hands. He's on a roll. Whether you guys like it or not, or whether we like it or not, a guy who's undefeated and who's been notching the type of victories he has, especially with his style, very aggressive. He goes to get that victory. He's not, like I said, he's not dancing around, pot shotting and clinching. He's got to have confidence. Usually when you have guys fighting Lomachenko, like, shit, these guys just, especially when in the first 3-4 rounds, they realize, holy shit, these guys are another level. But Ortiz, like I said, he's coming in there with confidence. He doesn't know how to lose. And on top of that, he's going to be facing a Lomachenko that's going to be out for about a year. And on top of that, he's quick. Not exactly the type of guy you want to fight after about 12 or almost 12 months off. What else was I going to say about that fight? It's going to be a 12-rounder, I believe. Okay, so Gonzalo, let me ask you, man, because I don't think most people have been asking this. What does Jermaine Ortiz have to do to win this fight?
I just watched some highlights. Maybe I should have watched the fight, but I watched some of his highlights. The dude's aggressive, and I think his power is like underrated. I don't know. He's got 9 knockouts in 18 fights. What does he have to do as a southpaw? Well, he's got to be aggressive. Lomachenko's going to bring it, so he's got to be like aggressive back. He's got to be up aggressive back and watch that angles. Like we kind of saw against a powerful guy that. If you can keep Lomachenko from taking those angles, like by being like physical back to him, like stopping him in his tracks as soon as he tries to take that angle, with size, you can kind of like keep this dude honest on Lomachenko. I mean, obviously, I don't believe this guy's a power puncher like Teofimo. So I would say, in my opinion, just do what you do, be aggressive. And then throw the shots to the body, because Lomachenko's also going to go to the body. So he's going to try to break you down because he's a left-hander. This guy as well. He should just keep going to the body, be aggressive, and at times use your length as well, because that's what you got going for you. You're also taller and longer, so you can fight from the outside, and you know how to fight from the inside. So you just kind of have to figure it out as you go along, but be aggressive.
I mean, that's the thing, though. In the Adorno fight and in the Herring fight, he's shown that he can fight a little bit on the outside, a little bit on the inside. This guy's a pro. He does a lot of good things in there. Fighting Lomachenko, though, like you said, a lot of people still believe that Lomachenko can counter because he chooses to be aggressive. He chooses to be the ultimate go-getter in walking guys down. So people believe, he can't fight backing up. But watch him counter, especially watch his fight against Gary Russell Jr. If you want to see the epitome of a southpaw versus southpaw fight, 2 quick guys, southpaws, Lomachenko essentially did that to Russell. He backed him up. He countered whenever he wanted to. Well, not whenever he wanted to, but for the most part, he had his way with Gary Russell Jr. That, however, was a Lomachenko from 8 years ago. That's the big question coming in here. 34, after spending time in the Ukraine-Russia war. Is he going to be the same? That is the main question. Now, let me ask you this, Gonzalo. What do you expect from Lomachenko?
Yeah.
Like, what does he have with these young guys in there like Devin Haney, Garcia, Tank Davis, Shakur Stevenson, who might not be there for a while, by the way. But For the moment, they're still at the lightweight division. What does Lomachenko have to do to convince people that he still has a shot at beating these young guns?
Like for example, the fight that against Nakatani, that was one of his last, I believe. I don't know if it was the last, but I think it's one of the one before Comey. What I
Right.
saw in that fight against a tall dude on the inside, he wasn't just taking a little stutter step in regards to like changing the angle to where that dude can punch and I can move to the side and he's gonna miss and I'm gonna hit you. No, he was taking a hard angle. Like he's really moving out of the way to make that dude fucking entirely miss and lose his senses of where Lomachenko's at. He was moving, he was taking a hard left, and just instead of a little fucking step to the right or left, he was taking a hard approach as far as like getting out of the way and changing that angle where that dude's gonna fucking miss and I'm fucking on you and you don't know where I'm at, where I'm punching. He was doing that, so that's what he needs to do. He needs to be a Lomachenko that's kind of like you already figured out what you need to do against these guys, and you just gotta be determined to do it. Don't question yourself yet. Lomachenko, he's a great talent. He's a great talent, but obviously he's getting older. He's gotta just try a little harder, but continue with the same style of fighting, which is it's hard to figure out. But only he knows how to fight like that, really. So keep doing the same thing, but just take those corners just a little bit harder, where that dude's gonna be out of place.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point right there. Yeah, like, so you're saying test him from the get go, see what he's got left. Hey, by the way, we got Chief reporting for duty. Chief, are you there?
Yes, sir. How are you tonight?
Doing fantastic. Thank you for being on, man. We're just talking about the Loma versus Ortiz fight, and Gonzalo was just telling us what Ortiz needs to do. No, sorry, excuse me. He was telling us what he expects from Lomachenko because, again, this lightweight division is jam packed. We just had Haney fight 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, so. He made a statement, keeping the titles. Now, what type of statement does Lomachenko have to do? In other words, what is your expectation of Lomachenko?
If Lomachenko's even 75% of what he used to be, I expect him to be smother this guy, smother him with angles, volume punches, really hard shots to the body, break him down, bust him up, probably drop him and hurt him. Whether he finishes him off or not is going to be determined on, one, if Loma wants to, like with Comey, or two, if he still has enough to do that. I personally think that one of the reasons why I didn't finish Comey off is because we're seeing that step slow down just enough to where he didn't put the pedal to the metal. And I'm not positive it's because he can't, but maybe he just doesn't want to. I'm not in his mind. I can't really translate that part accurately, but I noticed that his fighting was starting to be in longer spurts in between outbursts. And he didn't look slower per se or less accurate, but he was not as active. He was not as consistent, and he was not as, I basically said accurate. I mean, active and consistent were the two biggest things. I don't know if it was a stamina issue. I don't know if he was just playing with Comey, but the Loma prior to the Tio fight would have stopped Comey. Whether it's because his punches would have done it or because he would have kept that intensity up remains to be seen, but he would have stopped Comey. This Loma didn't. Part of it may have been because he didn't want to. Part of it was maybe because he couldn't sustain his attack. And I don't know much about the person he's fighting. I haven't really watched him or studied him too much. And my breakdown of what I think he'll do against Haney, we'll talk about if this fight ever gets signed.
Well, listen, in regards to Jermaine Ortiz, I don't even know how you pronounce his name, by the way. It's Jamaine. I don't know what that's about, but he's quick-fisted. He can fight on the inside. In fact, I would suggest that, I would argue that his inside game appears to be better than his outside game. He shoots short shots. He's very active, firing off quick volleys to essentially discombobulate his opponents, confuse them. And so he's a tricky fighter. Now, they both are familiar with each other because they've sparred each other. I don't know for how long, but it should be, at least from what I've seen from both guys, from what we know about Loma, he likes to press the fight. And from what I've seen from Jermaine Ortiz is that he also likes to press and not leave the fight up to the judges. I mean, he tries to be as active as possible to leave no doubt that he won the fight. So it looks like it's going to be a good fight, man. It looks like it should be an entertaining fight pre-Halloween, a couple of days before Halloween. So it should be a terror show. If it is, good for the fans. But yeah, man, Lomachenko's on a mission right now. He wants to assert his place as a number one lightweight in the world. In fact, a lot of people already believe he's the best, just he doesn't have the belts. So he's going to try to continue proving that this Saturday. That is going to be taking place in New York, I believe. Yes, indeed. New York, ESPN Plus. All right. We got Jimmy jumping in. Jumping, are you there? I mean, jumping, are you there? Jimmy, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Listen, why do you expect...
Can you...
shit. My connection's fucking up. Hold on a second.
I was just...
All right, I'm back. Yeah, what do you expect from Lomachenko this Saturday?
Like I agree with what you're saying. I think a lot of the stuff's been said about him has pissed him off, and the more he's learned English, I think he's kind of crept up on it more. I mean, remember when he first was around, like he didn't speak not a lick. He didn't mess with social media. Now he's starting to read English more and talk it, and so I'm sure he's starting to get more involved. And the stuff that was said about him by Haney really pissed him off. I don't blame Haney's father more than Haney, but I think he wants, just like you said, he knows the time is short. He's pragmatic dude. He's intelligent. He fucking, I think he knows that he's on the back nine now. And if he's whatever legacy he needs to cement, he needs to cement now. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. I mean, he's not a partier in any way. So that will keep him fresher. He hasn't had an extensively long professional career. He's only had 18 fights. He just has done a lot in those 18 fights. And again, this kid, Jermaine Ortiz, I would venture to say, I mean, if he was to fight Kambosos tomorrow, I probably would fight Ortiz to win. So it's like, even when he fights guys that, like a comeback fight, he gets no favor, no play. It's always he's fighting bums, avoiding this, but I think that all is fed into it. I think what time he has left, he's going to send his legacy. I really believe that, so I expect to see the best of him on Saturday, best what he can do at his age. And I think like the last few fights, whatever he has left, wants to cement his legacy out the door. So I agree with you. I think we're going to see some good action from him.
Well, we shall see, man. I'm expecting Lomachenko to go in there and provide an entertaining spectacle like he always does. I think if he wants to show guys that he is still the best lightweight in the world, sans the belts, then he definitely needs to at least hurt this guy and beat him up. And that's usually what he does. Now, we'll talk more about Haney if Lomachenko comes out victorious. But suffice to say, I saw a video from Paulo Malignaggi. He's made 3 videos now about Devin Haney. None of them good. He's really going after Devin Haney. That the Haneys are not on the level. So the potential Lomachenko fight's not looking good. That's all I'm going to say. Now, on that same day, can you guys hear me, by the way?
Of course it does. Yes, I can.
Okay, because my connection's fucking up here, it says. But you guys can still hear me, so all right.
Yeah.
All right, that same day, fellas, we've got another fantastic lightweight fight. This one coming to us from the Zone via San Diego, California, and that is Jojo Diaz versus William Zepeda, El Camarón Zepeda. A lot of people have been talking about Zepeda, how he could be the next big thing in the lightweight division. He had a bit of a resistance against Alvarado in his last fight. Zepeda is a southpaw. He can crack left to the uppercut to the body specifically. He can also box from the outside. Jojo Diaz, of course, he's been through the ringer, and that's a good thing. I mean, he's fought everybody. Gary Russell Jr., he's been in tough fights. He beat Tevin Farmer. He went the distance against Haney, gave him a very, very tough fight, tougher than expected. So, guys, how do you see this fight going?
I'd say Camarón Zepeda, he should win because he's taller and he's longer. He's a pressure fighter and he's not necessarily facing a power puncher and Jojo Diaz. I think Jojo Diaz changed his style when he fought Haney because he didn't believe that Haney um, threw anything hard that would make me think twice about going in. Yeah, but if he thinks he's just gonna walk Zepeda, what's his name? Camarón Cepeda, what's his last name?
Yeah,
Camarón Zepeda?
Yeah, Zepeda.
Yeah. He thinks he's gonna walk this dude down. Well, you don't necessarily have to go looking for him too hard. You don't have to go knocking on too many doors because this guy, he comes forward as well.
That's right.
So maybe Jojo Diaz revert to going to the boxer. To the Olympic style fucking get on the back foot, combination puncher. The guy that used to show up with he used to paint his hair like a snow cone. Not the cholo dude that showed up against Devin Haney. No, but he's really a featherweight. So this he's bigger, and I would say that Jojo Diaz got more experience, obviously, and I would even say he's probably a better boxer. But sometimes it's not just about boxing ability; it's about stamina and the pressure you provide. 60% of fighting is just fucking conditioning. Now, I'm not saying that Jojo Diaz don't got conditioning, but I think he's older, and this dude's gonna bring a lot of pressure, and he's taller. So, I mean, I would expect I would expect him to like pressure, and I think he just beats him because he's bigger, in my opinion.
That's an interesting way of putting it, man, because Joseph Diaz at lightweight, he's been giving it his all. He comes forward, puts pressure, goes to the body. But at 135, even when he was 126, he wasn't that big a puncher. Now 135, the guy is really not doing, I mean, he's landing shots, and you can tell that he shakes guys up a little bit. Like he hurt Devin Haney, who might not have the best chin in the world now, we're starting to find out. But other than that, he really has to labor against the top guys to get decisions here. He has to outwork them. And against William Zepeda, we saw him against Alvarado. He really pressed the issue. As soon as he saw that this guy Alvarado was going to be tough, that he experienced from having been in multiple wars himself, and he said, okay, I'm not going to get him out with one shot. Let me string combos together, push him back, try to get him out of his element. And it was still a tough fight. But he's a bigger guy, like you said. And look, we saw Jojo take on Rakimov not that long ago, and it was a draw. But he couldn't, I mean, he landed some good shots on Rakimov. He couldn't really do much against him. But it's interesting, Gonzalo, that you bring up the fact that you believe you believe that Diaz is the better boxer. I think you're right. He's more seasoned. He's got more tricks up his sleeve. But like you said, that doesn't necessarily mean one guy's going to win. And I do think Zepeda right now will not be denied. Jimmy, Chief, what do you guys think?
I think Diaz is messing around in a weight class not suited for him. I think he went up for the money. To 135, doesn't belong there. He's too small and he doesn't hit hard enough, and that's going to be his downfall. This kid can crack. This Mexican kid. I know his resume isn't, full of, top guys, but even that kid Tanara he fought there, Hector Tanara, they were pretty high on him. He's not a heavy puncher, but he stopped him. And yeah, 23 knockouts in 26 fights. He's a southpaw. He's tenacious. This is not an easy ask by no means for Diaz. He's tough. Diaz is tough. He's a tough kid. He's never been stopped, so I'm curious to see if this kid will be the first. But yeah, I think it's a big ask because this kid's got length. He comes forward, a southpaw, he can crack. And he knows he beats Jojo Diaz. That's a big name. That'll instantly catapult him. I mean, think about that. He beats Jojo, and if he stops him, which Haney didn't do, that'll throw his name right up there in the top, names of being thrown around at 135. And now he's looking at big paydays, life-changing money. So he's got a lot to, go for. I mean, Jojo Diaz, does anybody think he's going to be the world champion at 135?
No.
Does he have what it takes? No, because of his power. The lack of power will be his downfall. We'll keep that from happening. So, yeah, I like Zepeda in this because of all those things I said. if Jojo Diaz pulls it out and just outworks him, then shame on that kid. This is all in front of him right now, but that's pretty much what I got to say about that.
Joseph,
and this guy's from the capital of Mexico, so he's gonna bring that's where he gets his stamina, I believe, because the elevation. So even down he coming to the United States to where they fighting? Las Vegas or Los Angeles? Los Angeles, I believe.
San Diego, California.
San Diego, yeah, you said it, San Diego. Yeah, he brings that conditioning with him. Because if you're over there in this elevation, your body's conditioned for that. Now you bring that conditioning to San Diego, you're going to operate a lot better at sea level than the other guy.
Uh-huh. That's a good point, man. The elevation will probably... I mean, you watch the fight against Alvarado. He threw a lot of shots. In fact, let me go look up how many shots he threw. Because he threw, from what I saw, from what I remember, he threw a lot. But, Joseph Diaz is a very stocky guy. So, and he's strong. But I can't remember the last time he was in there against a puncher. Was Rakimov a puncher?
Exactly.
I mean, I know he beat Fuzili by knockout, but how many knockout? Well, yeah, I guess you could consider Rakimov a puncher. And Jojo Diaz stood in front of the guy, put his earmuffs on, and took what he had to give. So I guess he can do it. But listen, if Zepeda wants to knock this guy out, he's going to have to catch him in between Diaz's shots. Because when Diaz gets in that shell of his, like I said, he's a stocky dude. He's strong. He knows how to roll with the shots when he's got the guard up. So it's going to be hard, man. But if Zepeda can do it, then he will make a statement. And that will really catapult him into a different stratosphere here in the lightweight division. So we got that.
Go
ahead, Jimmy. Yeah.
And the Russian kid was a super featherweight too. He wasn't a lightweight, right? And this fight's being fought. Is this fight being fought at 130 or 126?
This one is at 135.
A featherweight. Yeah, 135. I meant lightweight. Yeah. So the kid that the Russian kid was at 130. So he's going up. This is a bigger kid. This is the biggest puncher by far he's faced because he's going to be bigger. He hits hard. And like Gonzalo said, fights and trains in Mexico City at that elevation. And I've never seen a fighter from Mexico City with a bad gas tank. I just never seen it. It'll be a big win for both of them, actually. I just think that Diaz, he's already lost. And when somebody has that loss, they're more reticent to lose. It's not a big deal, not as big a deal. This kid might have a draw as Zepeda, but he hasn't had a loss yet. And if he does beat Diaz, like you just said too, it's going to catapult his name right up there amongst the other guys. So a lot to play on this.
I mean, I gotta tell you, man, this has the potential to be a good night of boxing. Really wash away the bad taste that we had 2 weeks ago. And by the way, hey, speaking of the bad taste, one thing that a little bit of Listerine we got on this past Saturday when we had Mauricio Lara beating up San Martin over in Mexico. I gotta tell you, this Mauricio Lara has to be pound for pound one of the biggest punchers in boxing. This guy cracks, and you can, especially when he's fighting in a smaller venue and the microphones are right there, you can hear the punches, and they're like baseball bats. What'd you guys make of that fight, if you saw it?
Yeah,
I have yet to see
highlights. I caught the highlights. I had to go to a funeral, but when I got back, he cracks, man.
I mean, this San Marine,
the dude was older. The opponent, he was like 40 years old. I mean, the South American dude. Yeah, dude, but like, he felt the punching power, and I think he took a knee a couple times, and the referee ended up stopping it. You could hear the punches when he was training and hitting the mitts, man. The sound was reverberating in the whole fucking room. I was like, man, you can hear what some dude can really punch, and that's the guy. Mauricio Lara, man, he's fucking. That dude's got power.
Are you sure he was 40?
Somebody said, I was watching I Tiro in Spanish, and somebody said that he's 40. I'm not sure. I'm just going off of what somebody else said.
I'm trying to look up his box reg. Won't give me any information. So if anybody can, it doesn't let me log on. So if anybody can confirm that with me.
The opponent that that Mauricio Lara fought. I don't know who's the guy, but forget the name. Yeah, but I did watch some of the highlights. I wish I would have stayed back, man, but it's a crazy thing, man. They want me to go to these funerals, and there was one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and the people, my wife, like they never talk with them. They're always like the family members. They're always like in turmoil, fighting. But as soon as somebody dies, they want to go to the funeral. He was alive last week. I said, "What's up to him? You did it." But now that he's dead, you want to go visit him in his funeral.
That's life, man. People, they're there one day and they're not the next, man. It's really a wake up call. Sometimes you got to live in the moment. That's what I always say. By the way, from what I see,
we need to. Yeah. When people are alive, that's when you need to go see them. Not when they're dead.
That's a good point, man. Yeah.
But anyways,
hey, listen. I'm looking at the. I can't open BoxRec for some reason, but I'm looking at the WBAboxing.com. They say he's 31. So somebody's, I don't know, where are people getting this?
Yeah, my mistake.
Somebody
but it's...
Go ahead, Jimmy. What? Jimmy, you gonna say something? All right. I hope you're doing okay there, man. All right. Listen, I'm seeing it. He's 31. Kevin Fuentes in the chat says 31. Somebody's saying 25. Somebody else is saying 40. Somebody said 56. All right.
Who's that? Who's that? BD? Mauricio Lara's opponent?
Yeah, San Martin.
San Martin. Okay, yeah. That's what I heard, but I don't know.
Anyway, in any event, listen, the fella was tough. He went in there to fight. Mauricio Lara just knocked the paint out of him, or off him rather. And the thing about Mauricio Lara is he is perhaps one of the most interesting fighters out there. When he's out slugging sluggers like Josh Warrington, Emilio Sanchez, that was another fight that I'd forgotten. I forgotten that it had taken place this year. That was one of the best fights of the year. In fact, perhaps the best fight of the year. I don't know. Was that Jimmy?
Mr. BDA.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I think I dropped off. It's BoxRec says he's 25. San Martin, who just lost
what's going on?
Lara. It said
That's
25
crazy.
On BoxRec. I don't know, you know what I mean? Looking at his picture, I don't see 41, only because his face would be much more jacked up. Doesn't even look like his nose been shattered, but...
so let's round it to 30.
Yeah, so
Can we round it to 30? Can we round it to 30?
Sure. Let's round it to 30.
Fantastic. And by the way...
That's it. Is that a judicial decision?
That is subject matter jurisdiction there, Jimmy. Absolutely. And that's an objection on grounds. Yeah, by the way, that he was making his closing statements, Darrell Brooks Jr., before I came on
tonight,
here.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking of pushing this forward or doing it later because I wanted to see but essentially he was just saying the same thing he did in his opening statements. There's been a lot of mischaracterizations against me. There's been a lot of things said about me, a lot of lies. Like, all right, shut up. You're saying the same thing over and over, man.
Same thing. Nothing. He's saying nothing. He made no. It wasn't me in that car. Allegedly, that alleged incident. It wasn't me. But if it was, it wouldn't have been because of rage. I mean, dude. It's shocking. It's like he assaulted the fucking town, that community, for a second time. Seriously.
That's essentially what his plan is, man. He gets off on it. He's an antisocial person. He should be locked up. And you should see how many people are saying that if we were any type of society or any type of good society, functioning society, they should just release him from the courthouse, lock the door behind him, and just have a mob there waiting for him. But anyway, listen, that's for the second renaissance. We got to get back to the boxing here. Because let me tell you, Mauricio Lara, like I said, he made a bit of a statement against San Martin, knocked the paint off of him. Now they're saying, Eddie Hearn was there. Eddie Hearn was ringside. They interviewed him. He said, okay, I'm willing to make the Warrington fight. Here's a problem. I mean, the Warrington rubber match. Here's the problem. Warrington is taking on El Venado Lopez. And Lopez is an explosive guy. Well, Gonzalo, you've said a lot about him. Why don't you break it down for us?
No, I think, you know what, Venado Lopez, I think Venado comes from the footwork. I think he's technical, in my opinion, but he goes about it in a different way. He throws these hooks where he's not really bending at the elbow, so he's pretty much clotheslining you. And when he bends the knees, you don't know if that hook is going downstairs or up. And even if you're moving away, he could correct his punch as he's walking you down, or as he's chasing you down. Basically, El Venado, like he's got good footwork. And in what's the advantage of throwing a straight punch like that? Basically, like a hook. As you throw it, you swing it like a fucking back. So as you cock it back and you swing it, you don't know when it's actually coming. It probably disappears from your line of sight. And when you throw the punch forward, basically you're leaping. Leaping is not a good thing, but if he does it, obviously he trusts in his chin. He gets maximum extension on that punch because he's not bending the elbow. And basically he knows how long his arm is from his fist to his shoulder. That he can time it pretty well, and he's very accurate because as he's lunging forward, he's aiming for your chin, and as he's lunging forward, he's catching fools on the chin as they're backing up. So and not only once he lands that shot, he's just beginning to punch. Once he touches down, he throws like a lead jab with all that inertia and the movement that he just did after landing that devastating hook, that he continues punching. So he's on you from not the pressure that you would think, like on close quarters, like we're bumping elbows, exchanging shots. No, he's chasing you down and landing, and when he's touching down, he's landing again. I'm really high on fucking El Venado Lopez when what I watched.
That's a fantastic breakdown there, Gonzalo, because you're right. He leaps in with looping shots. So then you're looking at him and you're thinking, okay, from which crazy angle is the punch gonna come? And like you said, he loops him so much they sort of get out of the line of sight. And some people are comparing him in the chat to Navarrete. I would compare him. It's true. Navarrete does the same thing where he throws you off for a loop. But I would compare him to Fernando Montiel and the guy who just fought Chocolatito, Martinez, because they're both similar fighters. They're all similar fighters. They don't jab that much. They don't set up their punches with jabs. They come in with their chin up in the air, but they lead with so much explosiveness and left hooks and uppercuts, and you just don't see it coming. And they come in with the chin up in the air, but they're hard to time because they're so quick. I don't know what it is with this new style that we see every once in a while from Mexicans, where they lead with hooks, the way El Venado Lopez does and Fernando Montiel and Martinez. But man, I don't know if Warrington makes it out of that one. I'll tell you that much.
No. He beats the brakes off of Warrington.
You really think so? You're that confident?
I believe he does.
Because, I mean, Warrington's not the biggest puncher in the world, but he does have good hooks himself. And like I said, Lopez comes in here with that chin up in the air. I don't know, man. Let me show people who aren't familiar with Venado Lopez.
It's one of those things that when you're determined, like El Venado, from what I've noticed, because who has he fought? Andy Vences, El Tiburón, fucking Isaac Lowe, and Gabriel Flores Jr. So he's on the warpath, and some other name that I can't recall, but he's winning. He continues to win. So when you're that determined, yeah, your chin might be up in the air, but maybe this dude is like, I don't care, like if I get hit or not. I'm still fucking coming forward. And it's one of those things, if he trusts in his chin so much, there you go. It's like, yeah, he's aiming for you. No, it doesn't matter how he goes about it. Well, it works for him.
And Mr. BDA, I thought you were talking about Lara versus Warrington.
Oh, no. We're talking about Venado
Lopez. About Lopez?
He's got to get past.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I thought you were talking about the Lara rematch.
I got you. Yeah, no, he's got to get past Lopez first. And that's the thing, that we don't know if he gets past El Venado Lopez. But so, I mean, he's got to get a big hurdle before. And even then, okay, he gets past that hurdle. And like you said, most people don't see him getting past Lara either. So we'll see, man.
No way.
Right. But yeah, that's Venado Lopez, like you said, Gonzalo. Yeah, he makes mistakes, but I think it's going to take a Class A boxer, similar to what we saw with Martinez against Chocolatito, which it took a fighter of the level of Chocolatito to really beat the crap out of this guy for 12 rounds. Similarly with Venado Lopez, or somebody that's going to be able to time him. But that's the problem. Sometimes you can spend the whole night thinking, okay, I'm going to time this guy. And meanwhile, he's coming in, and you never time him. It reminds me of Custis Zoo versus Ricky Hatton. He thought, okay, he's going to run into a big right hand of mine. So all I got to do is wait and time him. And that it never came. Even when he would connect, Hatton would just walk through it and clinch and outwork him on the inside. So it's a similar thing with Venado Lopez. You could be waiting all night to land that that big counter, and even when you land it, it doesn't come, and he never gets laid out. So it's gonna be interesting, man. I'm gonna be opening up the phone lines very, very soon. Guys, the other fight that's gonna be taking place this Saturday, it's gonna be Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. And the only reason why I bring that up is because it's something that we've talked about before. When Jake Paul was gonna fight that guy with the Jufro and Woodley afterwards, there was a lot of hype for those fights, especially on fight week. A lot of people were like, "Oh, it's gonna happen! It's gonna happen!" Because at least what Jake Paul does is he can crack. Now, though, we're starting to see that this gimmick of YouTubers engaging in boxing fights sort of dwindle down a little bit. It's losing steam. There's rumors out there that say that the reason why he keeps postponing fights and the fights keep falling off is because they're not attracting that much money or many people at the gate. Anderson Silva is one guy who's got a lot of combat experience, one of the best strikers in MMA history. He outboxed Julio Chavez Jr. for whatever that's worth in his last fight. I think that was his last fight. He also knocked out Tito Ortiz, so the guy can crack. I think he's the best opponent, even at his advanced age. He's in his 40s, I believe. I still think he's the best opponent Jake Paul's ever fought. Guys, what, if anything, are you expecting from this fight?
Well,
Not
what
much,
I'm hoping, I'm not going to watch it, but what I'm hoping is he sparks his kid Jake out and we can get past this. You know, let's just get over this because, yeah, it's enough's enough. But then again, if the sport was doing what it was supposed to do, there'd be no reason for him. But you're 100% right. Interest is weighing big time. Showtime is, they say like Espinoza putting money into this knucklehead, like taken away from like boxing. Just goes to show you how much of a shit show it is over there. And, you know, I mean, they don't have any money for the Crawford fight, but they're bankrolling this thing.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, you know, we're talking about how Showtime is on the outs when it comes to boxing. What's going on through their mind? Are they looking at numbers and thinking, "Oh yeah, we can make some decent cash out of this"? Is that really what they're thinking, Jimmy?
Oh, that's the only thing they're thinking. It's strictly business for them. It's strictly profitable. You know what I mean? And they're going off probably his original pay-per-view buys. You know, when he did some decent numbers, but it's played out because he hasn't fought a real boxer. And yes, he's an MMA guy and a great striker, but he's also 41, 42, or 47. Oh, he's 47. For the love of God. You know what I mean?
47.
So it's like,
holy smokes. And I didn't know he was that old.
Yeah, I think he's 47, if I'm not mistaken.
So you're saying they're looking at the first pay-per-view he did, Jake Paul that is, or the first two, and they're looking at the numbers he did, and they're thinking, oh, okay, since Silva is one of the best of all time in MMA, for a while there he was the invincible man, he was the Roy Jones of MMA, then we're probably going to get that crap. But what type of success do you think they're going to have, if any?
I don't think it's going to sell. Because the thing is, Silva's been out of MMA for so long, he doesn't still have that rocket. Like when McGregor fought Floyd, McGregor was still like up on a pedestal and amongst the MMA people. So that was mostly that crowd that bought that fight. Silva's not like that. He's been retired for so long and just. Yeah, and it's just going to be Jake Paul's fan base, and I think they're tired of it too. The thing is, when you're not a real boxing fan, when it's a niche thing like this, you're not going to keep his fans, like Jake Paul fans, interest for long. You know what I mean? It's going to have to be something to catch their interest. There has to be a hook. And him beating up a 47-year-old dude, I mean, really? Or attempting to beat up a 47-year-old? I'm hoping the old timer sparks him out. But and then we just move the fuck on from this dude. They're saying that he's going to use his money and get into promoting boxing.
Well, he's been promoting that broad, the Brazilian broad, over at the Zone, I believe, and I think he's been doing a good job of guiding her. So maybe that's where he'll really make a statement as a promoter, because that's what really the Paul brothers are. They're showmen. What's the word I'm looking for? They're entertainers. And from what Andrew Tate has been saying, these guys are being backed up by the establishment. Even though they're Zoomers and they may appear to be very crazy, and they're still backed up by some powerful people, according to what Tate says. or at least they got them in their corner. Be that as it may, we'll see what happens with that fight. Silva, though, 47. One thing you got to give Paul credit for is that he can crack, and Silva does keep his hands down. So if he doesn't watch himself, he could be going the same way of Woodley and that other wrestler. I always forget his name, the white guy with the Jufro. Forget his name.
Astras. Ben Askren.
Askren, yes, thank you.
Yeah, he's terrible.
Absolutely terrible, man. Now, listen, fellas, we've got the phone lines open, so if you want to call in, talk about the Lomachenko fight, the Zepeda fight, the lightweight division in all, or whatever else you want to talk about, make sure you call in. We're going to be here. In the meantime, I want to direct your attention to the new heavyweight rankings from Ring Magazine. Surprisingly, they've got Deontay Wilder number 1 in the heavyweight division now. Meaning he's not the champ, but he's the next best guy other than... wait a minute, who do they have as a champ? It's not Usyk, I don't think. Let me check it out. Oh, yeah, I think Usyk is the Ring Magazine champion. I think it was because when he fought Joshua, it was a number 1 versus number 3. But now he's going to be taken... Yeah, okay, so they got Usyk as the champ, and now they've got Wilder as the number 1 contender for the Ring Magazine belt. Fellas, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, he knocked this dude out in 1 round, and a lot of people think he threw the fight. So, yeah, it appears that he even with like semi-half-hearted like punch with not everything behind it, it proves that the power's for real. I mean, this dude's got to be the biggest puncher in boxing history. So yeah, there you go. It's like if you sell that as like he's this knockout puncher, yeah, they're gonna put him in number 1. So I don't know, man. I don't know if to believe that.
Can I say what? Can I give my honest opinion? I think it's to what Steve said. The sport's a joke. And this fucking highlights it. This dude if you look at the statistics of those 3 fights, not only did he get beat the fuck up and starched out in 2 of them, the numbers weren't even close. He landed less than 10 punches in every round. He was thoroughly outworked, thoroughly outboxed. And why? Because he throws a stiff leg together, no bend at the waist, badly thrown arm punch that fucking the dude goes out for 2 minutes on. Please, I think it wasn't like he wasn't paid to dive. I think he knows he sucked. He was a bum. He wasn't going to beat Wilder. Even if he outboxed him, they weren't going to give him the decision because Wilder's obviously the man. And he said, why the fuck am I going to put 10 rounds of this bullshit? I might as well check out the first right hand I get. And because you don't really control it, you know what I mean? He took the first right, maybe knocked him off balance, and could have been like a flash knockdown. There's no way he was out cold. And I'm telling you right now, I bet my life on by the way he was breathing. I watched it again, zoomed in on the fucking, enlarged and breathing. He was breathing normal. When you're knocked out cold, eyes open out cold, you breathe like somebody was like the same as a gunshot head to a head. Somebody's been shot in the head. It's a very like guttural breathing. They always breathe weird with their mouth. It's just a weird way they breathe, and he didn't do that at all. His eyes weren't glassed over when he got up. I think he just checked the fuck out early. There's no way in hell that arm punch put him down for 2 minutes like that. Just no way. Nobody's going to convince me of that.
That's the best explanation I've heard. You see, that's how you explain something that's not on the up and up. People should take note. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Clinton Haney for his comment here. He says, hit the like. Absolutely, fella. Hit the like. Really appreciate the like. And it really helps us out. So shout out to Clinching Cheat Haney. What's that?
And Mr. BDA, can I also add too? I've never really had a problem with him, but sometimes he says things that kind of piss me off. But the announcer for the PBC, the guy when he gives the announcement, he has his teeth clenched. It looks like he's taking a shit. Fucking Ray Flores or Ray, you know what I'm saying? That guy. Well, he tweeted out. What's that?
Hispanic guy that does the interviews too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Him. For him to tweet out that whoever thinks that Haney, Helenius, who went in there to have a war, like did questioning that or conspiracy haters, and fucking, well, of course, Jimenez drilled him. He got him. That's what he gave one of the best tweets. He's like, and he basically put together an interview of him with Wilder, as Wilder sat there saying his trainer drugged him. And this is another side note. PBC actually spliced up that thing, put it back up, but took out what Wilder said. Because not only did Wilder sat there in the Zoom interview, blaming his trainer drugging him, Wilder cheating, Fury cheating, and he would say, "Oh man, he always start with, don't get me started. And anytime he'd have to give any kind of reason. And I'm a type of what's known doesn't have to be explained. Well, of course you are. Of course you don't have to explain it. You sound like that fucking moron testifying. And best of all, though, this is what PBC has gone and spliced out of it. He blamed white privilege for Fury getting away with it. The reason why boxing, he said they did this here, and he covered his eyes, covered his ears, cut his mouth. And there was fucking Ray Flores nodding along, smirking. Yeah, yes. So basically, that kid Jimenez drilled him with that, saying, you're going to call people, describe the arm punch. He basically used my description from me, the bastard. Stole my description in the tweet, saying, and if people are saying that looks suspicious, for saying that, call people out for that suspicious thing, but co-sign Wilder's bullshit.
Well, let me tell you something, because we've got phone calls coming in, and let me tell you something about Ray Flores. I believe that's his name. Let me just double check. Yes, Ray Flores. He does the announcing for the fights too, the international broadcast for the PBC fights, on top of being the in-ring announcer or presentator. But he's also the ringside analyst for some fights. Like I said, the international broadcast. I had the misfortune of listening to his commentary for the Davidiachenko-Charlo fight and for the Spence versus Garcia fight. Let me tell you something. This guy is a company man. And look, if he wants to make his money, this is what you expect from network television. You don't see guys rocking the boat. Larry Merchant, this guy is not. Now, I didn't have too much problem, like I said, with his commentating, other than the fact that it was excruciating to listen to. For example, when Charlo would land a punch, he would, big shot by Charlo. Then Davidiachenko would land a combo, and he'd be like, talking about something else. It's like, well, Jermaine Charlo likes to go golfing on the weekends. Like, all right, come on, man, what are you doing? So he's very pro PBC. He calls the action only for the A side. But I did lose a little respect for him as a man when, I believe it was after Tank Davis fought Rolly Romero. Or excuse me, I think it was after Isaac Cruz. Shit. Can you guys still hear me? Fuck. Rough deer.
Yes, we can.
Okay, because the phone lines fucked up. Let me restart the phone lines here. Everybody that's on the line, stay there. We're having connection issues here. But I don't know what you guys heard, the last thing that I said, but what I'm saying is Ilores, when he was in the Mayweather, after the Cruz Tank Davis fight, and actually, let me show you the clip instead of telling you about it. But first, I'm going to set up the phone lines. Gonzalo, do you got anything to say about Ray Flores? Curious to hear your thoughts on him, if you got any.
I think his voice, he does it on purpose like that. He's learned how to talk like that. I don't think it's like natural. That's all. He's kind of entertaining. He seems like he's entertaining. But like you said, he's a company man. But who isn't, man? All these motherfuckers are.
That's true.
He's a nerd. So he's a weirdo. He's a weirdo for sure. As you're talking, I'm listening. The guy's fucking weird, Jimmy. Yeah, you're saying.
I posted his tweet in the Discord so you can see what he said. Again, you want to be a company man? Fine. But for him to go on and chastise fans, and fans and people who've forgotten more about boxing than that fucking zipperhead will ever know. And for him to to say, and again, people not saying it was a dive, but like that looks suspicious. You ain't gonna tell me that arm punch thrown, no movement at the waist, just like he was swinging a hammer down. You know what I mean? From the elbow down arm punch. There was nothing on it. No back, no legs. That's where your power comes from. Your arm is irrelevant. All the punching power comes from your legs, your midsection, and your back. And that was all dormant. Going backwards, too. And then just slapped his right hand down. No follow through, nothing. And the kid goes out for 2 minutes.
If somebody can bring up a good evidence to suggest that a fight, that a guy took a dive, because a fix, by the way, a fix doesn't mean that a guy's taking a dive necessarily. Because, a fix means that something is set in stone. right? So people need to get that definition right as well. But for him to say that and not even address the evidence, what did he say exactly? That's what I'm curious of. Because you got to address the evidence if you're going to call something ridiculous.
Okay, well, here I can. I'll tell you right now. This is exactly what this. What he said. Can you hear me, Mr. PDA?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
Oh, okay. So. Oh God.
Actually, let me. Okay, is this the tweet, the one you're talking about? Did you post it here?
Yes.
Okay, let me put it up.
Yes, that's yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I have it right here. It says, for people saying Robert-Helenius didn't come to win or are having conspiracy theory, he took a dive. They're all liars in capitals. It's clear they have an agenda where they hate Deontay Wilder. I spoke to the ringside physician, and with my own eyes, I saw Robert disoriented after the punch.
Well, listen, like I said,
up.
at least if you're gonna dismiss something or support something, you gotta back it up with evidence. It's just, I mean, this is just essentially him chastising people for believing this, or at least just considering the idea that Helenius took a dive. So yeah, man. But now here's the thing that so then Heyman had said, you know, the longest Wilder said he was drugged, Fury cheated, blamed the white privilege, and black fighters need to pick a side. But you're calling out people for saying a straight. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
All right. Hold on a second. I'll be right back. I'm gonna check my internet connection. You guys take over, right? Hold on a second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, Gonzalo. Now, when you saw the punch, what did you think?
Like it's hard to tell because I mean, the dude can certainly he like they say he's got metal plates in his or something, a component in his hand of a metal of some sort. So I mean, the dude probably, and he hits hard, man. He that guy hits hard. But what I'm saying is,
how does he hit hard, brother?
But I can't.
We broke down his power, right? Break down his power like you did before. It's out at the end of his punch. Remember?
But my thing is, if this guy used to be your sparring partner, and you know that heavyweights, one punch can change anything or everything. I mean, why are you gonna walk in there and offer your chin on a silver platter with your hands down?
Exactly,
dude. You used to spar this guy, dude. At least keep your dukes up and show a little bit of composure there.
And he had 31 pro fights, and he was never stopped before, right? So all of a sudden, either he fought nothing but. So, all right, it comes down to this. If that was a real knockout, if that really knocked him out, that shot that caught him in the cheekbone, for him to get knocked out to that degree, he would have to have a legendary glass chin. But it's never been exposed in 31 professional heavyweight fights. Nobody's ever landed hard enough to expose him. Because if that punch knocked him out to that degree, his glass chin is, like I said, is legendary. And I don't believe that's the case. So because Wilder's power is out the end of his punch. It's a whip. That's why Fury knew, just crowd him. Sugar Hill said, just crowd the dude. He's got no power. Just crowd him. And he's no power inside.
I think you're right, man.
I
think you're right. I think the most likely scenario probably is Helenius went in there. Listen, I said before the fight, I said, this guy, you look at his eyes when he fights, he doesn't have a lot of heart. Now, some people can say, but BD, he's a boxer. He steps in between. No, listen, guy, it's relative between fighters. You can step in between the ropes and get in that ring. Okay, you got balls because you step in the ring. But now what else are you going to do afterwards? That also plays a factor in whether you got heart or not, or whether we can determine that you've got heart and balls. And Helenius, the way I've seen him fight, I mean, the phone line might not work today. Yeah, the phone line might not work today, fellas. I'm sorry about that. So I'm not even going to try anymore with the phone lines. What I am going to do is I'm going to be opening up the StreamYard in case anybody wants to call in. I think that's going to be the safer alternative here. Because again, this fucking... All right, I don't want to make any promises here. But what we're going to do is the fucking phone lines are not going to be working with this type of connection that we've got. It keeps going on and off. So I'm going to open up the StreamYard. If anybody wants to call in you're gonna have to do it via the StreamYard. All right, that's what we're gonna be working with today. And if the phone lines, the internet connection reestablishes itself, then we'll see how we do it. All right.
Big
All right,
money.
fellas, I'm back. Fellas, I'm back. Sorry to interrupt. I'm back. I had to drop off because I didn't want you. I didn't want you guys to go. Where's BDA? Where's BDA? Like, on the air. So we've been having connection issues. Like I said, the phone lines. I'm gonna open them later if the connection reestablishes itself. But in the meantime, we are gonna be using a StreamYard link. If anybody wants to call in, give us their perspective on the lightweight fights. Deontay Wilder being ranked number 1 now by what's it called? Ring Magazine. We'll be doing it that way.
Insane. Can I talk about those 3 real quick? I just want to say this about those 3 fights against Fury. So it wasn't just, again, that he got starched in 2 of them. All right. In total, Fury outlanded Wilder 316 to 177. He outlanded him in 25 out of 30 rounds, and Fury connected 40% of his power shots. Wilder landed just 19% of his total punches and less than 10 of them in 26 out of 30 rounds.
Amazing.
It was a one-sided whitewashing. How the fuck is this dude getting number 1 ranking, coming off that, and then beating that slug Helenius with an arm punch? It's just more of an insult to the sport that's become such a joke.
Well, I want to get into that. I want to get into that rating because I think, well, I'll give you my theory. But in the meantime, we were talking about Ray Flores and how he was nodding to everything that Wilder was saying. Not necessarily, I mean, visually he was agreeing with him, but verbally he didn't say it. So he might have that as a cop-out. But he didn't challenge Wilder either. He very easily could have. But again, that wasn't
he
the place
addressed
for
it
him.
in Twitter. Somebody, Kevin Horn from Top Rank said something to him, and he addressed it. He said, well, I don't, fighters, they get in there and do this stuff. They're doing it, so I don't correct them. Oh, fuck you, dude. If somebody's sitting there saying unsubstantiated, childishly ridiculous statements because they're co-signed in this little fucking echo chamber world he exists in, I don't care that he's a professional fighter, you apparatic punk. You sat there nodding because you're a fucking zipperhead.
That's really bad logic right there. So since you don't box, you can't point anything out that goes against what a boxer said. And by the way, at which point does, like you said, at which point does what the fighters say become so ridiculous that you finally are able to chime in and say, you know what, that sounds a little bit ridiculous. I mean, listen, he's a company man, and I'm not going to single him out just for that because, again, like Gonzalo said, that seems to be the norm. It's actually a feature of boxing television analysts more than anything else. But I will call him out on this, man. I mean, he's got to do something about this. This is the clip that I was talking about. This is when, after the Davis Cruz fight, when people were really lambasting Davis a little bit for that bad performance, the fact that he looked awful in that one. Check this out. Hold on a second. Let me play it here. There we go. Check this out.
Let me get out of here. You guys go ahead.
Get out the way. Let us take. Get out the way. Let us take over this. Tank, I just had your back. Hey, Tank.
Did you hear that? Let me get out the way, he says. And he goes, yeah, get out the way. Get out the way. No eye contact, no nothing. Check this out again.
Let me get out of here. You guys go ahead.
Get out the way. Let us take. Get out the way. Let us take over this.
Get out the way. Let us take over this. So he's not even a person for Mayweather. He's just an object that's standing. And this guy takes it. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he got a hard on or something. You know, he likes to be bossed around that way. I don't know. But Ray, you got to do something, man. You can't go after fans. No. Like, you're not proving how tough you are by going after fans. You got to stand up to these fighters, man. You got to have, I don't know. Listen, if I were, I don't know how much he's getting paid. We all have a number, I guess. That's what people say. And sometimes I sit around that and I think, well, what would be my number? Like, at which point can you pay me enough? And he's got access,
financial access. That's all it is. He gets access to fighters by not rocking the boat. That's the thing with Al Hammond. And what about after years of ESPN, Dan Raphael? How does he look at his fat face in the mirror to sit there within 72 hours, not only put out what were fraudulent Triple G Canelo numbers, but in his article, in the headline, call it disappointing, and have a whole piece ready within 72 hours. And here we are now, going on 2 weeks since that Helenius fight, and crickets. What happened to his sources? Sources get you numbers. How can sources not? Because remember, the zone didn't tell his sources the numbers. His sources sourced them out. How come his sources are unable to get those numbers? Meaning they're so horrific. They're what I believe Michael Woods, who doesn't usually get involved with shit like that, he's kind of a shill himself in a way. But he tweeted out his people told him it was barely 50. And Glacier said that he was told 77, but that would be the high end. So let's just be honest. It fell between somewhere 50,000 and 77,000 pay-per-view buys, which is so 100,000. It didn't even break 100. Remember I said that? I'd be shocked if it broke 100. People can go back and I said that. Yeah, people say it was going to do 300, 500. It was going to beat Triple G Canelo 3. Oh my God. And I'm like, people just don't have a fucking clue because you got to look up what it was against. The other sport events going on that weekend. And there was professional fights all over the place for free. It was such a joke. So the fact that Dan Rafael has been dead silent and people have been tagging him into tweets, daily. Dan, what's up, Dan? And he's just blocking away, blocking. So he'll end up like a Jake Donovan. Keith Idlek will just be, conversing with the bottom feeders on Twitter because nobody with any credibility will have anything to do or respect anything they say.
We've got Don Chingasos calling in via the StreamYard. Don Vergasos, can you hear me? Oh, shit, hold on a sec. All right, I can hear you now, man. Yeah.
I think it's great that we have 2 fights coming up on Saturday. We got Camarón Zepeda versus Jojo Diaz. I think that's gonna be the most exciting fight from the Saturday fights. Why? Because we got a boxer puncher against a pressure fighter that actually likes to bring the heat. And I have Camarón Zepeda winning by KO. The key factors on why he wins are his stamina, and his size, his youth, and he's a very hungry fighter right now. From what I've listened on his interviews. So I expect Jojo Diaz to get finished, BDA. That's my prediction for
all right.
Saturday's fights.
Interesting.
I know that's a bold prediction, but we got Jojo Diaz, who's a little guy. Go ahead.
That's why they call you Don Chingazos, man, because you take the big leaps there with the predictions.
Hell yeah.
What about the Lomachenko?
But yeah,
fight?
Jojo. I'll speak on it right now, but Jojo Diaz, he's a little guy, and he only has like 64-inch reach. He's like 5'5", and I don't see how he's gonna deal with a pressure fighter that's bigger than him, longer reach than him, that actually uses the jab to set up his punches, and he loves to work the body. So, like I said, Jojo Diaz getting finished, and as for the Lomachenko fight, it's gonna be a good fight as well. I think Lomachenko is probably the best 135-pounder right now, and that's why I have him winning on a decision. However, the Jermaine guy, he's young. He has the size advantage, and he actually has good fundamentals, and he likes to bring the heat as well. So I know a lot of casuals are saying that's an easy fight for Lomachenko, but it's really not. It's gonna be competitive in the beginning, and I expect Lomachenko to win on a decision. Right. Not easily, but convincingly at least.
Ortiz's biggest drawback is his lack of power, but he is a very fundamentally sound fighter with decent hands. And there was a lot of talk on him when he was coming through the amateurs too, coming on. A lot of people high on him. But it's the lack of power will be his downfall. If you can't, but like Teofimo Lopez, that explosive power that he does possess was the thing that kept, whether he had a bumped shoulder and he was trying to keep it raw, he had to wait till him to lose a lot of that snap because he didn't want to get caught with that punch. So it changes how you fight. But when somebody doesn't have that power to begin with, you don't have to worry about it as much. That frees up yourself to do other things. And for that reason, I think Lomachenko might even stop him, because Lomachenko knows he needs to put a stamp on this. Like, you know what I mean? Means to make it impressive. Because he sees that everybody's giving Haney shit for not stopping Kambosos. So he wants to go out and stop this dude. And so it'll just it'll just underscore. And I don't ever want to hear anybody calling this fucking show and either justify and explaining why Haney went to 140. I don't want to hear it. You don't fight him. Fuck it. That's a
Jimmy,
duck.
you've been.
Straight.
I think we should do a video just to break down, finally explain to people and put it on in simple words and slowly so that people can understand it. The fact that it was impossible for Loma to fight Haney, because I mean, people still go on and on about how Loma docked him supposedly. I think they just want to believe what they want to believe. But listen, Don Chingasos, we gotta move on to another call, man. But anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I agree with Jimmy's take. I think I believe Ortiz is gonna bring the heat, and Lomachenko is gonna work those angles to counter it, because Lomachenko is an underrated counter puncher, in my opinion, and that's how he's gonna win. And just to close it off, in references to Ray Flores, I mean, that guy, he's a company man. He's gonna protect the PBC from everything. If Al Heyman's about to get slapped, Ray Flores will get in the way, and he's like, "Slap me! Don't slap Al Heyman, please."
He take a bullet for Heyman, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And
there you go, man.
And keep up the good work, BDA, and that's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Don Vergassos. Thank you. Take it easy, man. Thank you for calling
Good
in.
call.
All right, let's go to Kenshiro here on the stream here. Don't forget to hit the like, fellas. Hit the like. Kenshiro, are you there? Kenshiro, can you hear me? You're on the air, man. Probably went to get a cup of tea or something. But I can hear myself in the background there.
You know?
Yeah, I can hear you, man. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I mean, pretty much what Jimmy said. I was just going to pretty much, well, obviously before he said it, I was going to say, that's what I called him for, about Loma or that. Yes, I know. I think Jermaine Ortiz, I haven't seen many of his fights. I think he's had a couple. He's undefeated, obviously. I think Lomachenko winning is just not enough. He has to do it in style. I know he's not a massive puncher, but he says obviously his accumulation of shots stops people. So I think he has to win in style. And then hopefully if he wins, he's got to then call out Haney or whoever he wants to call out to make a statement. He's been out for nearly a year. So he has to win and win big and impressive and then shout out what he wants to shout out. That's what the main aspect for him.
All right. So, do you expect what's you expect him to stop Ortiz? You expect him to just beat him off for 12 rounds? Like, what's the bar for you in this one?
In this one, no, I don't think he can afford to just embarrass. I mean, there's no point in trying to embarrass somebody for 12 rounds who's in Ortiz's position. I would say, I might be wrong. In my opinion, he probably wants to try and stop him 5th round, 6th round. I mean, you might want to try and embarrass somebody for 1 round or 2 rounds or whatever, or make a statement, but you've got to start putting the work in. I'm thinking he might want to stop him by the 6th round or something to say to the world that I'm back, even though I've been away for however long, and then call out who he wants to call out to make an impression. So then people can call out people want to see the fight, who he wants to fight. In England, his betting odds are 1-33. Now, I know obviously that doesn't mean nothing in real life because one punch changes it, but that sort of shows how confident even the bookies in England are.
Well, now, okay, you picked Lomachenko, and I do agree. The guy's got a good chance of stopping Ortiz because he does have power, and Adorno, who's another power puncher who fought Ortiz, he had him bleeding profusely from the nose. He was battering him a little bit there because he did have power. So Lomachenko, I think, has a good chance of stopping Ortiz, and hopefully it's an interesting fight. What about the Zepeda versus Jojo Diaz fight?
Yeah, I think obviously Jojo's a little bit small, but I guess if you can get into Zepeda, you never know, he might be lucky. I'm not a massive expert on Zepeda and Jojo, so I'm not gonna start giving all sorts of bullshit about their fights. I'm not an expert. I've seen a few of their fights. I'm not sort of massively into these guys, but of Jojo's obviously got to get past that range and whether his weight aspect as well come over Zepeda's.
All right. Well, listen, that's all for the fights there this Saturday. Thank you for your call, Kenshiro, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right, man?
No problems, guys. Stay safe, man. Yeah.
All right, you too, man. Take it easy. All right, yeah, listen, the Diaz-Zepeda fight, I think, like Gonzalo said, Zepeda's a power puncher. I don't think he's going to box from long range. I think he really is going to try to go chest to chest with Diaz. I'm expecting a good fight from that one. And if he stops Diaz, he makes quite a statement. They're becoming the first guy to stop him. Now, back to the Wilder thing real briefly here, because we were talking about the pay-per-view buys. Jimmy says it's probably between 50 and 77,000, which is what they're announcing. According to Michael Benson, who's referencing Dan Rayfield, he says 75,000 US pay-per-view buys for Wilder-Helenius. But you got to remember, what Dan Rayfield said about the numbers is what he was told to say. In other words, the PBC/Showtime, they're not going to release the numbers. If it doesn't come from them, you got to take it with a grain of salt. So like Jimmy said, the pay-per-view numbers might have actually been lower than 75,000. And that just goes to show you, Wilder fans don't buy pay-per-views. So, they've been saying all along that this guy's, he's one of the biggest stars in boxing. Deontay Wilder this, Deontay Wilder that. We've seen the Crawford-Spence fight fall apart because there's not enough money for what they're asking. They're not that big of stars, and they're asking for superstar money. They're not, because a certain demographic is not going to pay to watch them. Same thing with Deontay Wilder. We're seeing they don't want to pay for those fights, and it's interesting because one of the things that you hear from certain Americans is, well, it's because in the United States there's too many sports. You got baseball, you got football, you got basketball, so that takes away from the boxing. Whereas in, let's say, England, they only got soccer, maybe cricket or rugby, and then they've got boxing. But I disagree with that because let's say they just had two sports. Well, the fact is that the majority of the population still watches football and not boxing. It's not because there's too many options out there. So in other words, what I'm trying to get at is whether it's 4, 5, or 2, in the United States, if there was only NFL and boxing, I would suspect that it would be around the same number of people watching boxing, meaning it would still be a niche sport. Because it does take a while to get into boxing. It takes about, and I'm just throwing this number out there, but it could take 5 years to really start appreciating boxing. For the first 5 years, you're still learning, you're still making mistakes, you're still wowed by the flash and the power and the speed of certain guys. So I don't buy that argument of, this is because the United States has too many sports, therefore takes away from boxing. I don't fully agree with that. I'm open-minded, but I'm starting to reassess that point of view. And on top of that, I also wanted to bring up something about the ratings themselves, because, like I said, Ring Magazine now has Deontay Wilder number 1 at heavyweight. He's the number 1 contender to Usyk's Ring Magazine title. But here's an interesting thing. This is what Doug Fisher, the editor-in-chief, said in the comment section of that article. He said, talking about Fury, he'll get back in the rankings once he fights in December. Seeing is believing with Fury. So again, because some people are saying, well, how can Wilder be ahead of Fury? Well, that's because Fury is not ranked currently by Ring Magazine, because he announced his retirement, so they took him off. And that's why they also, he's not in the rankings. But I suspect that once he comes back and beats Chisora, there's no way he's going to be behind Wilder, because he's got 2 wins over Wilder. And I mean 2 concussive wins. I mean, he's beat the shit out of the guy. Then he's got the win over White, in which he dominated him before knocking him out. And then a tune-up fight against Chisora. He's probably going to slap the crap out of Chisora again. There's no way they can put, if he does that.
They're allowing that fight to go forward.
Right, but what I'm saying is there's no way that they can have Wilder ahead of Fury after that. So this I suspect, I hate to say it, but I think this is a bit of a tactic from Ring Magazine. I think they do believe that maybe they say, well, listen, since Fury's retired, we got to consider him retired, and therefore we got to go with Wilder as number 1 behind Usyk, who's the champ. But I think this also might be a little bit something to rile people up. I don't know. I'm not convinced about what I'm saying, but it sounds like something a magazine would do to really rally some interest and controversy and discussion around this subject.
Well, Mr. BDA, I have a quick question. Is the WBC now vacant? Did he ever fully vacate it? Because if not, he's a sitting champion, ranked behind a guy who he's beaten technically 3 times, or not even ranked. If he has a belt and hasn't relinquished it, then technically he's still a champion of sorts. He's not the unified, that is obviously Usyk, but he's actually holding a belt, and Wilder holds nothing and doesn't even have a significant win since before the pandemic. So yeah, I think it's propaganda to stir things up, but stir up what? Because there's no amount of anything you're going to stir up enough to where anyone's going to give your name can be LDBC, and it still won't stir up enough to win a fourth fight between those two, because we all know what's going to happen unless he brings a shotgun in the ring with two pit bulls and an army tank behind him. He's still not going to win that fight. So,
to answer your question,
he's 36 years old. He's not getting. I'm sorry. Let me finish real quick. He's 36 years old. He's not getting better. He hasn't had a significant win in 2 years. So, I mean, what's the purpose in this?
Well, listen, to answer your question first, Tyson Fury does still hold the WBC belt. Ring Magazine is the one that decided, okay, you announce your retirement, boom, you're off. The WBC seemed to know, knowing Tyson Fury, they say, you know what, let's wait before we strip him. I think that's what they might have thought. So he still has the WBC title. They did not strip him of that title. I mean, when a boxer like Tyson Fury chooses to say, I am retired, I don't think you should take him at his word. Because he's done that. And he'll probably announce his retirement after the Chisora fight. Don't be surprised if he does that. And then 2 days later, Usyk, Yadasa, I want to fight you. He's like, all right, come on. It's going to be a merry-go-round with this guy for as long as he goes. I'm telling you. And I can't do a Fury impersonation that well. All I can do is really short when he goes, Tyson Fury, yeah? That's what he always says. I'm going to fight my friend Dasa, yeah? But in any event, they shouldn't take him seriously. But that's what it is, man. It's a circus right now, the heavyweight division. In fact, I hear people now saying that supposedly Usyk is docking Wilder, if you can believe that. We're back with that little narrative. It's never going to stop.
Of course he is.
Right, because Wilder's already sent an offer for $50 million, right? That he's got secured in the bank that's backed by Lloyd's of London. And they've secured it and verified it.
24 hours to take the deal. But you can't see where the money's coming from.
No, you can't see where the money's coming from. No, you don't have 24 hours. You've got 2.5.
Well, listen, that's what we got on that heavyweight mess. And moving on to another mess, because we do have to keep track of this. The Crawford-Spence fight, which has fallen apart. People try to warn us and try to warn some of you who were still adamant that the fight was going to happen. Top Rank founder Bob Arum now came out and said that this fight could have been made had Crawford had or possessed proper representation. He said, the PBC did a great job where Errol Spence and Crawford was left in effect without a promoter. So it became difficult for Al Heyman to make the fight between Spence and Crawford, who didn't have a promoter. What would have happened earlier if we were promoting Crawford, he said, we would have sat down with Al with the way we did with Pacquiao and Mayweather, the way we did with Wilder Fury, and worked out the nitty-gritty promotional details that have to be done in order to put up a fight of that magnitude. Now, here's my question. When they did the Wilder Fury fight...
had the money.
Well, okay, but let me ask this. When they negotiated the Wilder Fury fights, do you think Al Heyman was really in the room? Or was it Shelley Finkel speaking in Al Heyman's name?
Sure.
I'm sure Al was there.
All right.
Because he's such only because he's a fucking he doesn't if not there he was in on speakerphone because he doesn't let anybody he micromanages everything. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I was gonna say maybe not due to the fact that Shelley Finkel is a representation and he did. I'll put it this way: if Al wasn't in the room, it was for the third fight. Okay, for the other two fights, I'm sure he was in the room. If it was for the third fight. If he was in the room for that one, I would not be surprised if he just let Shelley Finkel do his thing. But aside from that, he was in the room for the others, definitely.
Yeah, and he was in the room when Shelley talked to Eddie Hearn about the Joshua fight, and they didn't even let Wilder talk. And I didn't even let him speak. It was ridiculous. So I believe it'd be the same case.
Well, I think that's sound advice, man, not to let Wilder speak. It's like when if you're a public defendant and you've got a guy that is clearly guilty, you tell him to clam up. Don't talk unless we tell you to talk. But it's interesting that Al Heyman is being Bob Arum is being very cordial when it comes to this fall. He could have very well chosen to kick these guys while they're down, and he's choosing not to. He's saying, I don't blame Al. I don't blame Errol Spence, and I don't blame Terrence. It's just very difficult when one guy has a promoter and the other guy doesn't. Do you guys agree with that statement?
I think he's leaving the door open. I think he's leaving the door open to get Crawford back. I wouldn't be surprised. And again, it's also for self-grandizing reasons. Self-promotion reasons. He takes him back not only does by default, it's Crawford's telling everybody, he's not racist. I was bringing a frivolous lawsuit because I was convinced to do so. But it also, shows that Crawford, how good of a guy Bob is, how he could overlook some slight, such a, horrific slight. But I just got to say we were just talking about Wilder, Finkel and all that. I got to say too, Lou DiBella or Loud Bella, depends on how you want to call it. For him to get fired by PBC, Al fired him. For what reason? What was his own admission? Lou DiBella, Al Heyman fired me from the PBC for trying to get Wilder the AJ fight because he talked to them without fucking Heyman's permission. They just for that alone gassed him after being a front man for that fucking organization for like 3 years. But did you see the tweet Loud DiBella put out? So disgusting. Like, no self-respect, this dude. But this is what he said. I think that ESPN reporting take without enough foundation. Al didn't waste all this time purposely failing to make the deal. That being said, Heyman's not closing a bad deal or turning over the event control to those less experienced or less astute. He's far too smart. Like, you suck up. You fucking weaselly because you found out once you were gassed, you haven't been able to do anything. Just these tiny little shows. Because you sold your soul to the PBC, the only way to be relevant again, you have to get back in its good graces because nobody else trusts you. So he's sucking back up to Al through social media. But I just think that's pretty fucking gross.
Let's say Lou is kind of, to me, I don't know what his tax code is as his job description, so he may say he's a promoter, but he acts more like a manager. Because
he's a lawyer by nature.
Well, I get that, but what I'm saying is when it comes time for what he does when he represents boxing, it used to be Lou DiBella Promotions when he was on HBO because he was an executive producer to HBO. But once that went away, Lou DiBella Promotions or DiBella Promotions kind of went as always the B-side of every he represented fighters, but they were always the B-side of almost every promotion. So once HBO quit doing business with him because they quit doing boxing, he seemed more like a manager than he was a promoter. And he even did I forget which fight it was, but back when I used to listen to the Boxing Rant, they actually reported one time that he was the promoter to the event, and he was saying, "I'm really disappointed with the promotion this fight is getting." That's what a manager says, not a promoter. A promoter says, "Oh, this isn't getting enough." The promoter never says it's not getting enough promotion because that means you're not doing your job. And if I may just take the phone for just a little bit, 1 second longer, the whole thing about Spence and Crawford and Spence moving on. Spence basically didn't fight Crawford, and Boots Ennis has to have an injunction from the IBF to say, you have to fight this guy. That tells me all I need to know about Errol Spence. He only takes fights that are offered from the PBC that he knows he can win.
Well, I mean, listen, the PBC, I'm surprised at how they've been able to survive. I really am, man, because rumors of their fall have been around the past 2 or 3 years, and yet they're still afloat. Ultimately, though, I think a lot of the guys that signed with the PBC are going to regret having done so. And I can't blame them, man, because they saw that Heyman was still with Mayweather at the time when Mayweather was active, and they thought, hey, listen, man, if we go with Mayweather, we're going to get that Mayweather money. I mean, if we go with Heyman, we're going to get that Mayweather money. They associated both. They couldn't disconnect them. And now they're finding out the hard way. I mean, look at, like I said, just Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia was on a good run at 140. He looked like he was going to forge. Yeah, I know it's going to sound funny now. You guys are going to chuckle. But it seemed like he was on his way to having a Hall of Fame career. Beating Morales twice, knocking out Amir Khan, Zab Judah, Maidana. Even the Lamont Peterson loss, I thought it was very, very close. I thought he should have won. Received the decision against Lamont Peterson. And then what happens? As soon as 2014 comes along and De La Hoya gets out of rehab and what's his name? Swiss banker steals everybody and takes him over to Al Heyman's side, he starts fighting Rod Salka. He loses to Herrera. And it's just, he's been used as a B-side opponent ever since. And this guy and excuse me, I forgot. He beat Matisse. Oh, that's the high point of his career. And Gonzalo was saying, I think it was Gonzalo who was saying that when Danny Garcia was crying, remember that his last fight, They were talking about mental issues, but Gonzalo theorized that it's because Danny Garcia is realizing, holy shit, my career didn't go as I played. He's already getting them up there in age, and he's realizing about what could have been. Again, might be a stretch, but you just never know.
No, he was having a great career. He was lighting it up back in the day when he was a golden boy. And then his father, why should we have to fight that when we can fight Rob Selker? Remember, he said the quiet parts out loud.
Right.
And so yeah, he's a fucking he got what he deserved, man. They all laid down with dogs. Now they all woke up with fleas. And here's the bottom line. Here's what is. And you want to know, listen, why haven't they signed a single blue chip prospect in years? How come all the blue chip, they're all blue chip prospects are signing with Top Rank over and over? They just signed another kid. They just signed that kid the other day. See that the release? That kid everybody's high on. Nobody goes to the PBC. It's by its nature, it's a dying entity. Whether they survived by because Espinoza, that clown, threw some money into him and they talked Fox into finance him. Nobody else is lining up to fucking finance him, and they need finance or they're going to drop out. And on top of that, the fact that they got no young blood coming in, they're not going to try to sell it because they have nothing. This is all they have: a bunch of aging, stagnated careers. And you still got clowns on Twitter calling him the fucking godfather of boxing. It's amazing. What's that, Steve?
I'm sorry. Fulton and Colbert were their like two, quote unquote blue chip prospects on the way up. Colbert's lost, and Fulton. I respect the heck out of Fulton. I really do. But when you're 22 or 20 plus and 0 with only 8 knockouts, as the divisions get higher, and you can't fight these guys off, and you're not hurting people. So this is the thing about Purnell. When you hit it, when he surprised you with that straight left, it usually backs people up a step, and they're like, okay, I got to recalculate. He didn't hurt people, but he kept them just off enough with his punching power. Lack thereof, but he had just enough movement with some sting to offset.
Them honest.
Yeah, it made them. Of course, he was also extremely carefully managed, and I'll take that debate up with anybody who wants to on a Kumite or a Friday. But but at the same time, he still, like Floyd, they would pot shot in a way that would keep you to the point like I've got to calculate how I have to attack. They're not doing that with Fulton. And the featherweights and junior lightweights aren't going to do that either. And he's going to find out the fact he's going to need some power. And like I said, Colbert's already lost. So those were their two big. And of course, you still have Antoine Russell, and then that's about it because Boots Ennis is not a actual PBC fighter. He fights under that umbrella only because of Showtime. He's not really one of their fighters. So yeah, they've signed nothing.
And that's Antoine lost too. He just got stopped over the past weekend.
No, that's Antonio.
Antonio. Antonio. Oh, yeah, that's right. Well,
he didn't get stopped. It was a technical decision. So just to clarify, But he was on his way to getting stopped. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, he was getting the shit beat out of him for sure.
But it's interesting, man. It's the PBC looking back at it. It's going to be an interesting phase of boxing, and I don't think people are going to look at it too fondly. Now, let's talk about the future, because I don't want to get into this too much, but just to let people know if they've been living under a rock. Supposedly, they're talking about how they're in negotiations for Garcia, Tank Davis. I don't know if that's going to happen. Again, whenever they talk about that fight or Crawford-Spence or Usyk Fury, I hold my breath. Or actually, I don't hold my breath. Actually, what's the expression? I'm fucking up here. You guys know what I'm saying. I'm being highly skeptical.
You're not going to hold your nose. You're not going to hold your breath because if
I'm not going to hold anything. How about that? I'm not going to hold anything. How about that? I mean, it's going to be like in the Godfather. I don't want my brother coming out of the bathroom with only his cock in his hand. That's what I don't want to do. I don't want to go out there and get caught off guard. So I'm being very, very, very skeptical about this. But what do you guys think? Have you guys heard anything about that? Something that might liven up the day and say, yeah, it's going to happen?
Nothing strong that it's actually going to go through. Like I said this on a show a little while back, that when I was looking at some rankings, that Ryan Garcia was ranked number 1 by the WBA at 135, but he's also declared the fact off of his last fight that 140 is his division now. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I guess the money would have to be right, but if Tank's the A side, how much money is it going to generate for Ryan to go back down, weaken himself for a title shot that he doesn't really want because he wants to compete at 140? Not to mention, Floyd is openly said, regardless of his bantering that everyone's following because they think every time he opens his mouth, he's telling the truth, which I'll debate that one too, that he's lied on several occasions.
Oh, wait a minute.
That he's actually interested in entertaining this fight. There's nothing about Floyd Mayweather that seems genuine that this fight's going to be made, what he said on multiple occasions, only in-house fights.
Well, shout out to Alan R for the super chat. Just he says in the chat that Davis Garcia is happening in January, and they already agreed to the terms. I'd like to see a source on that, Alan. It's not that I don't trust you. It's not that I mistrust you. Just with this fight, yeah, I mean, I really do need to see some article or something, not just a rumor. You know, like, hey, Dan Rifle says they're very close, because again, we know how that goes. But
exactly.
I mean, listen,
BDA, they could agree.
Yes.
They could agree on financial terms, what the split would be. They could agree on all that. But here's the sticking point: whose network are they going to fight on?
that's a good question right there as well.
The Zone? They're going to let Davis go to the Zone? I doubt that. Is Golden Boy really going to let him go fight on the PBC on a Showtime fucking pay-per-view?
On top of that, Showtime doesn't agree on their budget until sometime in February. They don't announce their playlist until March. So when are they going to, the fiscal year starts, I don't know when, if it starts for everyone else. For the government, it starts in September. For networks, I think it starts in January. So if it starts in January,
done.
Yeah, so they don't even have a budget yet to give to say this is how much we're going to subsidize the fight. So, I mean, whoever said that in the chat, I can't actually read the names on my phone, but I'm not discrediting you at all for anything you're saying. It's just, it doesn't add up based off of the business sense of what's going on right now. Again, what network? Because Showtime, it doesn't even have a budget set until probably February.
You know what? That's what I told. Yeah.
And I was going to say, I wanted to step back for 1 second. When you said Bob said about the Crawford fight, here's the big difference. Bob has the money, easily could afford to finance that. The PBC doesn't. They don't have the money. And even, so that's another thing too. And they have to wait for the budget to come up. I think they knew that. They were stringing fans along to try to keep interest. But now that Crawford's taken on that fight on whatever that channel is, I guess it's somebody saying Blue Blood Boxing is one of the owners of that channel. I don't know if that's true, but
sounds like fake news, man.
But now, of course, Errol's pissed, supposedly pissed about it, saying if he does that fight, it's not gonna, they're not gonna go through with the next fight, or he's probably gonna go up to 154 because his options, like Chief just said, Boots Ennis. So does he get starched by Boots Ennis for short money, or does he get starched by Crawford for big money? Obviously, he's going to pick the big money, because I think he loses to both those guys, or he goes up to 154. And I think if he does do that, he'll stay around for a few big money fights and then retire. And we'll never see the Crawford
I don't know
fight.
if with the Garcia Tank Davis thing, if I'm Garcia, I'm very dubious about taking that fight, because I don't think he gets paid. I think there's a big chance that he doesn't get his money after the fight, considering how badly the PBC is doing right now. And that's the other thing about the PBC; they're being very surreptitious with their work. And by the way, Jimmy, that's secretive, just to put out there on the record. Very very furtive is another one. But I mean, I wouldn't. I'm just saying, I wouldn't trust the PBC, and but we'll see what happens. We'll see what. This is also might be bad news for Tank Davis, because if they're willing to make the fight now, then that means they're cashing Tank Davis out, because maybe they're saying, oh boy, he might the court date that he's got might not go his way next year. So you never know, man. We'll see what happens.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem for Davis if they don't make it. What are they going to do? Go back and fight another no-name? Remember, the best guy for years now was an accident. He was a last-minute replacement. I guarantee you they didn't know he was going to put up that kind of fight. And that's the reason why Tank was like, no rematch. And they haven't talked about a rematch with, the kid from Mexico City. So what is he going to do? Who's he going to fight next? Imagine that. Imagine the fans. Even I would imagine, because even a lot of his fans, except for the real hardcore identitarians who are only into this because of the fighter looks like them, they're the only ones who are going to stand by him. The guys who just like Davis, have been kind of hanging with them. I think that would be the final straw. Like, okay, now you're not doing Gabe, and you're going to fight. What's this dude's name? Some guy you never heard of. Like, so, yeah, he's kind of at a crossroads. Maybe they're seeing the tea leaves. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they don't have even. Let's say that they actually extended the branch to not likely top rank, but maybe Golden Boy, and because Golden Boy's kind of sinking ship too. It's like, hey, I tell you what, we'll throw you a bone if you give us JoJo Diaz. Like that's probably the best they can do to try and make anything outside of Ryan Garcia, but they don't have a lot in their stable. They're running out of opponents for him, and BDA, if your theory of the fact that they want to try and get a money fight in, whether they're cashing it or not, but trying to get a money fight in, thinking that this court case isn't going to go his way because a judge upheld the decision, this is going to go to trial. This isn't a civil suit of being sued for money. This is a court case of you broke the law, and we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna put it before a jury of your peers and see what happens. If he goes away for 6 months, okay, that's not a big deal. They only what I mean by that is they only fight like maybe once or twice a year anyway, so that's not gonna. But if he goes away for 1.5 years to 2 years, he's 30 years old when he gets out, and he hasn't fought in 2 years, and he tends to balloon up. It's not like he's gonna thin down in prison. And well, he could. The food's not that good there. He might thin down, but he's gonna come out malnourished. So, I mean, it's not like he's going to be able to come straight out, and he'll have to pull a Diego Corrales, fight a couple tomato cans before he can get ranked again. And now you're looking at a 5-foot kid who's kind of pudgy, maybe not pudgy in this case coming out of prison, but needing to fight some tomato cans before he can get ranked, and then even see if he can still sell.
No, he'd blow up. He'd blow up in prison. He'd absolutely blow up because they survive on oodles and noodles and salty, fatty foods.
Right.
Everybody gets fat in prison. Everybody gets fat in prison because they live off commissary and fat and greasy food. So cheap, nasty food. So yeah.
So wait a minute. So no matter how many push-ups they do, no matter how many push-ups and calisthenics they're doing, and how many Navy SEALs are doing in their cell or in the yard, you're saying that food nutrition is everything.
Very few people. Very few. The places without gyms and places to run. Yeah, they all blow up because they literally live off commissary. And what are they all? They make these disgusting cheese, sausage, those hard sausage you buy. They don't go bad and keep them out of the refrigerator. Because remember, they don't have cells. They don't have refrigerators. So they have to eat stuff that's going to be left out. So it's oodles and noodles with all kinds of nastiness they throw in there. And it's just pure fat and salt and carbs. Yep. And they survive off that. That's what they eat in prison. I mean, the ones that they gamble food. Food's everything in jail.
Yeah, the ones that get jacked are the ones that probably are using the underground black market system that we don't know fully exists, but we know isn't. That there's a possibility it's there, and they're probably
why does it gotta be? Why it gotta be black though?
Well, okay, excuse me. The underground system. I retract the previous comment, Your Honor.
That's right.
The underground system of getting stuff on the the down low, and they're probably getting the special vitamins and supplements. But the people that are on that list are few and far between. And if Tank wants to stay out of jail any longer than provided that if he doesn't get sentenced, but if he wants to stay out of jail and not stay there longer, he doesn't want to get involved in that.
And they did take away all the free weights of all the state prisons. There's no more free weights.
Jimmy, the ones that get you in shape are the burpees, right? The burpees when you jump up and down and do a push up, and so some other stuff. Then you go back again in place. Those get you in shape, right?
Man. That'll burn some calories. But like Jimmy said, nutrition is everything, man. I mean, you can, unless they're doing boxing workouts where they're burning a shitload of calories, they can't be going around eating noodles and those cheese sausages that he talked about. That's insane. By the way, hey, real quick, we got Joe calling in via StreamYard. Joe, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hey, what's up, BDA?
What's going on, man?
You guys can hear me, right? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, man. What's up?
Yeah, okay, my bad. Did you guys hear the Rick Glasser interview? What his take was on it? Well, he basically said that basically he said that that people were talking Spencer out of the fight, that he was going to lose this fight, and that's why Heyman just kept on putting in. He kept on putting in, these things that just didn't make sense into the contracts, because they kept on telling Spence that he wasn't going to win. And
Jimmy, you said that, man. You've said that they don't believe that somebody over there at the PBC or on Spence's side doesn't believe that he can beat Crawford.
Yeah, I've believed that from day one. You just look at what they both bring to the table. I think Crawford, what he brings to the table is more, and his style is more conducive to beating Spence than Spence is to beating him.
Yeah, and I think that that's what Heyman was doing, probably unbeknownst to Spence. He kept on trying to sabotage it. You know what I mean? By putting in these ridiculous things, by not looking at the books and shit like that.
Because you know what, man? Listen. Because some people are gonna go, well, wait a minute. He beat the crap out of Ugas. How can they believe that he doesn't have it anymore to beat Crawford? Well, like Jimmy said, yeah, he beat the crap out of Ugas, but he also got stunned by Ugas, a guy that's not really
3 times in 30 seconds.
Right, and I know there's some.
Yeah, and Ugas is also probably 40 years old.
Yeah, that's true. The Cuban birth certificates over there. Add 5, 6, 7 years to that.
Yeah, which is his name? Coach Willie or whatever the hell his name is.
Malachi.
He just did he did the interview with Rich Glassman. It's a pretty good interview. Mm-hmm. I'll give the guy credit where credit's due. I can't stand Rich.
It's about 2 days ago.
I can't stand Coach Willie, whatever the fuck his name is.
Really?
But I do like Rich Glassman. It's a good interview.
I'm telling you, Joe's got he's got an attitude. That's what happens when you're from Boston. You know, it's he doesn't like certain people for some reason. But anyway, listen, Joe, anything else you want to say before we move on?
Yeah, I just said, listen, I give credit where credit's due. Like I said, I don't like Coach Willie, whatever the fuck his name is. But
come on, man.
He did have a good interview with Glassman, so I'll give him credit.
Oh, there you go, Joe.
Why don't you like Coach? Can we ask, bro? What did happen with you and Coach? Did Coach give you a hard time? What is it that Coach says that you don't like?
What you call it? One time in the chat, in his chats, I just wrote the Charlo sisters athletes, not fighters, and the guy bans me.
Are you sure
I called the show up. I says, dude, why? I says, you banned me because I make a joke? Oh, I didn't ban you. I go, bro, you just banned me.
Now, Joe, to be fair, because I heard that somebody else that you complained about that months ago, and I don't know what you have to do here, but somebody else complained about that, and I just got to ask, are you sure that was him directly, or was that his mods, his moderators?
It was him.
All right. Well, listen, that's a discussion for another episode, I suppose, man.
Yeah, you know what? I really don't even give a shit. You know what I mean?
What the fuck? All right, so
but
this is subject matter jurisdiction that goes on in another court, not in this one. All right, man. And that's it. I'm making a judicial determination on that one, and I get the grounds. All right. What's the business?
Yeah.
All right, well, listen.
Well, Jimmy asked me, so. You know, I'm just answering.
I know, but I
know. I asked because I was curious because somebody else said that recently, and I wanted to know what it was from because I haven't never had a problem with them. I was just curious. That's all.
Yeah, but it's subject matter jurisdiction, Jimmy. As a sovereign citizen, it's subject matter jurisdiction, man. We got to move on from that one.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And now that you made a judicial decision, I got to shut up. Okay.
There you go. All right. Well, listen, Joe. Thank you for calling in, man, and we'll catch you on the next one, right, man?
All right, man. Good show, guys.
Hold on. Come up with some ideas for second Renaissance. We got to do more. We got to do more spooky episodes before Halloween is over. All right, man. For second Renaissance.
All right.
So I'll come up
with the few.
Do me a favor. We might do a special episode on Odyssey where we just watch videos, short clips. So if you can find a bunch of short clips, we'll watch them. All right, man.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for calling in, Joe. Take it easy, man.
All right, pal.
All right,
that Coach Malachi guy, he's funny, man. He's a funny guy.
I like him. I like his stuff. I have that episode saved on my watch later list. I haven't gotten to it yet, so I'm looking forward to it now. But someone that Gonzalo and I both listen to, Blood Boxing, has also gone off on this whole thing, and he's also one that he's not a biased guy at all. He really doesn't care about either side. He doesn't get into the politics very much. He's more about talking about the history of boxing. But he's even said on his take on the whole thing is that based off of the politics that he does know, he leans towards PBC on being responsible for this because, Bud signed for 35% with no guarantee, with nothing down, with no bonus or anything, with no bonus promotion, just signed. And then they wouldn't let him see the books. He's like, how is this Terrence Crawford's fault? He's like, you've never heard Spence call Crawford out. You've never, he's only been to one fight. Crawford's been calling him out since the beginning. Then he had to win a title and he did that. Then he had to leave Bob Arum and he did that. He's done everything he's had to do to get this fight, and the fight's still not being made. So he's blaming Spence's side of the street, maybe not Spence himself. And he's a pretty knowledgeable guy. So not just because he agrees with my side of the story, but because his knowledge of history is really good. But people are starting to see this, and other than the fanboys, just love the PBC because of what they brought. It was almost 10 years ago, in 2015. People are starting to see that they don't produce much. It's only in-house fights. Big fights that we want to get, we're not getting, or they're getting in the way of, because we would have had Tyson, we would have had Fury Joshua by now, but Wilder had to get in there and get his butt whooped a third time for no good reason. And we would have had Spence Crawford by now if Al Heyman would have done business with the other side of the street. We would have had Tank and Garcia if they would fight outside of in-house fights only, as per what Mayweather says. It's all on one side of the street. It's only on one side of the conversation that any of this is happening, and it's not anybody else. Lastly, on my last point on this is Charlo was offered fights by Eddie Hearn and by Golden Boy to fight Andrade and Canelo for about $7 million each. He's not netted $7 million in 4 years worth of fights. This is like almost half a decade of fights for him. And he said he never saw the contract. And the only reason why I believe him is because Danny Garcia didn't see his contract from Bob Arum either. Al's getting in the way.
Yeah, they're not allowed to. That's why. What's his name? Read the contract. You have no autonomy. You're not allowed to discuss fights, and he has last say. So if an email comes across his or an offer comes across his desk, he can shut it down. Make a judicial decision right there without having to talk to a fighter, which no other promotion would ever do that. But Heyman has full autonomy over his fighters. Their names, everything.
I mean, look.
Are you okay? Sorry, I was going to ask. The David Avenition fight's pretty good, man. I'm all right with that fight.
You know what, man? If it would have taken place 3 years ago, maybe. But the fact that they paraded the Spence fight in front of us, and now he's got to go down to that level, I'm pissed off with that. Now, look, you can point the facts out to people, especially the PBC supporters, and they're never gonna accept it. It's even, you got Deontay Wilder admitting that he dogged Joshua, and even then that's not enough. Some of the Wilder fans, the PBC fans, they ignore that, or they go, well, it's because Wilder had promised Fury that he was going to fight him, so he was a man of his word. Okay, whatever the reason was, he chose not to fight Joshua. That's a dog right there in their eyes, or should be, but again, it's their bias. So it doesn't matter what you point out to people. And that's the problem with the Crawford-Spence fight is, again, you really got to dig into that story to determine who prevented the fight from happening. And most of them aren't aware of that.
And that's why I've been saying all along, all those things that Blood Boxing said, I've been saying all along, who went to whose fight, right?
Yep.
Crawford went to Danny Garcia fight in Texas, asked to go into the ring for a face-to-face call-out. Spence's people said no. He says, you don't see me showing up to Crawford's fight, but then he shows up to Porter, and when the fight was done, Porter wasn't even done being counted out and he got up and ran for the exits. And when reporting, that fucking weirdo ran up to him and said, you have anything to say to Crawford? No. And he kept walking. You just add up all those things. Never mind the face-to-face when Bob was there. And you can just see the body language. Crawford's like, pointing right in his face. He's like, why should I have to fight you when I can fight Porter? Like, who says that unless you don't want to fight him? He was making excuses right to Spence's face. I mean, Crawford's face. So, yes, Spence knows knows he can't beat him. I think Spence knows it too, and I don't think he's ever wanted to fight. And because you can say, okay, Heyman doesn't let him look at things. Heyman has last say, but Heyman wasn't there when they said, "Do you have anything to say to Crawford?" How couldn't he just say, "Yeah, I'm a big." It's a big difference between me and Porter. Although he really couldn't say that because he went life and death with Porter. So, but just the things he has control of, I don't believe he's ever wanted that fight.
Well,
Ever.
listen. That fight is something that's it's going to be one of those things that when you look back in 2022, you're going to go, "What a shit show." I tell you what, though.
It's gonna happen, BDA. It's gonna happen next year for sure. I know. I got
Hopefully.
a feeling for sure.
Hopefully, but I'm saying when you look back at 2022, it's going to be you're going to consider it a shit show. But I got to say this: let's look at the future because Edge Skaveluskas, who fought Crawford and Virgil Ortiz, said that he would pick Virgil Ortiz over Crawford right now. That is high praise indeed. And I got to tell you, Crawford got dropped by Kavaliauskas. They should have called that a knockdown. Now, some people are going to say, well, wait a minute. What about Ortiz? He got stunned by Kavaliauskas too. Rewatch the fight. He did not get dropped. He did not get hit. He did not get stunned. He didn't get dropped by a punch. He did get stunned a little bit, but he recovered right away. So I'm looking at that.
Recovered. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking at Jermaine Ennis. He's been stunned twice. I've only seen Ortiz stunned once, and he came right back. So, and he's fought better opposition than Jermaine Ennis. Everyone's talking about Jermaine Ennis.
Much better.
Virgil Ortiz is a guy that he's right there as well, man. He's a predator at work, and
the fact that welterweight.
I get a feeling that if Kavaliauskas would have fought everybody at welterweight, he would still have picked Ortiz to beat all of them because this guy is just. He's a predator, man. He's like a heat-seeking missile. He just zones in on you, and good luck making it the distance. So,
and he knows he's fought both Crawford and Ortiz. He knows who hits harder.
But he hasn't fought Ennis. So his opinion would be out on that. I'm the minority here when it comes to that, as far as the opinions on Ennis, and I know this. With the exception of Kavaliauskas, there really isn't a huge difference in the quality of their careers. So, that is a huge difference in quality. One opponent in Kavaliauskas. But other than that, you got Lipnitz versus, I forget who Ortiz fought. Maurice Hooker and guys like that. They're junior welterweights also. They're also light punchers. They're not big guys. They're marking his face up. He gets hit easy too. And the stunning from Lipnitz, I really saw, I saw like he got hit and he took a step. I really didn't see a leg shake. I watched it more than once. I didn't see a leg buckle. I didn't see the same thing that you and Rec and I saw BDA. I did see the fact that it maybe knocked him, quote unquote, off balance. And then the other one he fought, DeLone, I didn't see anything that he needed to worry about. So he got hit with the right hand on the way in. It's boxing. You get hit when you're aggressive. And didn't even blink. Walked right through the guy and then finished him off. His last fight, suspect. I get that. But aside from that, I think these two are primed and ready for each other, but I don't see it happening at this weight class. I don't see it till they have at least two belts in different divisions underneath their belt to make this the super fight we deserve, because we're not going to get it out of Crawford and Spence.
I mean, listen, I get what you're saying, but Ortiz is just as aggressive as, if not more, than Jermaine Ennis. And I haven't seen him struggle the way Ennis did in those harsh moments. He got hit with a right hand by this Dominican dude, and he fell into the ropes and had to hold to get out of the way. And against Lipinets, he got stunned for a microsecond there with a big overhand right. Now, of course, he recovered, but he should have, because, I mean, Lipinets isn't a big puncher. I'm just wondering what's going to happen when he fights a guy that can crack and he's dropping those hands. I can only shudder.
And Lipinets is a junior welterweight at best. Shouldn't even have been at welterweight.
And by the way, shout out to
Rafael
Rafael
but you can say
Garza.
the same thing about Hooker. You can say the same about Maurice Hooker and everybody, with the exception of Kavaliauskas. You can say that about everybody else that Ortiz has fought on the main level.
But that's the big difference, because that's the one question mark we have on Boots. And I'm a huge Boots fan, but we still don't know if he can take world-class power. I've been told he can, for whatever that's worth. I'm just saying I personally haven't seen it. And the one question I had about Ortiz, can he take world-class punching power? And you, the green, I mean, that, I can't even say his name, cracks like a motherfucker. He hurts people when they hit him. Everybody says he's a power puncher, and he did. Ortiz took those punches. So you know what I mean? So That's he's got that check mark, and that's the big check mark we're still waiting on. But Ennis only fighting 4 minutes this year is not helping his cause either.
No, I'm with you on that one.
Igedijas Kavaliuskas.
Cavaluskas, there you go, my brother.
He
Exactly.
beat that tall dude, Atlantis Fox's brother, one of the Fox brothers. The other dude was like, never mind. Well, okay, think about Sebastian Fundora. This was at welterweight, and this Atlantis Fox dude was like 6'5", and Mean Machine's only 5'8". I mean, he's bouncing back, and he's beating the guys, aside from Ortiz and Crawford, he's beating everybody else. He's a tough dude.
Well, listen, if this Ennis Ortiz fight ever happens, I suspect it's going to happen at 154 because I don't think either guy is long in the tooth for welterweight anymore. By the way, shout out to Rafael Garza for his contribution with the super chat. He says, hashtag Spence Bud is a pipe dream. Hashtag Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act is a joke. Oh, shout out to Rafael Garza there. A little bit of negativity, but also a little bit of truth. I got to tell you. Shout out to Rafael Garza for that. Shout out to Plutonium Loach. Oh boy, what's he going to say? Shout out to Plutonium Loach for his contribution. He says, the fluffer Eli Sackback is a mean. Ole puñal le gusta el garrote. Oh, come on now. He's casting aspersions on, I think he's casting aspersions on Eli Sackback's sexuality. That certainly is not. I'm going to have to object on that grounds. I don't get the grounds, but I'm just going to object right off the bat. Judicial determination incoming. Leading, there you go, yeah. But shout out to those guys for the contribution with the super chat. What else was I going to say? Chief, I want to ask you something. Because we're talking sometimes. Oh shit! Real quick before you go, I think I just saw your message.
Yeah.
Pernell Whitaker versus I Corte. Can you enlighten me on what happened?
No, and I actually asked Lou Duva about that because he was sponsoring Zab Judah at an international tournament in my hometown around the time that fight fell apart. Uh-huh. They said he never signed the contract, is what Lou said. But Lou was one that, his son really did. His son Dino was the manager, and the other son Dan was the promoter. He was just the corner guy, but he didn't give any reason as to why it was. It just fell apart. Ironically, not long after that, Corte was seen in the ring after one of Roy Jones's fights. So maybe he was trying to get under ring promotion or square ring promotion, and he was training out of Pensacola for a little bit. And maybe that had something to do with it. But when he was trying to get his stateside representation squared away, but there was no real story of what happened. It was ready to go. I never heard that there was a signed contract all the way through on everything. But I mean, of course, I was in my early 20s then and had no connections. I just ran across people. But historically, there was no real story on why it fell apart.
All right. Well,
I'm not saying that the Duvas protected him from them, but when at welterweight, they were very touchy on who they wanted when it came time for unification fights. I mean, he and Trinidad both won their world titles in 1993, and it took them 6 years to fight.
I mean, true, yeah. Trinidad was with Don King, so yeah, it just
Trinidad was what? I'm sorry.
He was with Don King on the Showtime side, right? At that time, because of Mike Tyson.
Right, but after one of I think it was against Freddie Pendleton, Don King came out and offered on TV and said, we're prepared to offer you $4 million, winner take all. No, because Don usually likes to have promotional ties in case his fighter lost. He wanted to have co-promotional rights. He said no co-promotional rights or anything. Winner take all, $4 million. You name the time and the place, and the Divas never answered. And this was in 1994 or 95, and they didn't fight till 99. So,
man, that would have been a great fight. One of those fights that could have been what could have been. All right, well, listen, Chief, I don't want to take you up much of your time. I know you got to go eat. So thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
As
all you guys.
Take it easy,
Jimmy.
man. Take
good
it
night,
easy.
guys. Take care. And everybody out in the chat, have a good night.
Good night, man. Hey, shout
Speaking
out to Rafael
Juba, though,
Real quick.
Sorry,
Jimmy.
shout out to
Yeah, shout out to Rafael Garza for his contribution again with the super chat. He says, at Plutonium Loach, great comment, LOL. Well, there you go. Rafael Rich certainly enjoy that comment. Go ahead, Jimmy. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, remember they were praising, what's her Duva's wife, Kathy, the female of boxing, making it work. You know what I mean? Really, what does she do outside of Kovalev? I mean, they let that promotion just go. And are they even still a promotion? Are they even still active?
Man. I mean,
main event was huge at one time.
Yeah, in the 2000s, they still had Gatti. Remember that? They were doing a good job with Gatti.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right.
In the
After
80s and
Kovalev,
90s, they were starting to rival Top Rank, and all of a sudden, Dan Duva died. God rest his soul. I mean, but she took over, and she had but she hired a bunch of females too. Remember, it was like her second in command was female, and that was the thing. They did an article last I saw, the females of boxing, business side of boxing, and what have they done since Kovalev? What have they done? Are they even active anymore? I'm wondering.
Well, it's hard out there. You know how it is, Jimmy. Boxing, it's hard, man. There's Bob Arum right now, Golden Boy, Eddie Hearn, and that's in America at least, and that's about. Well, I mean, America and England. That's it. Then you've got the Eastern European or German promotion. I forget Universum. I think they're still around, right? But other than that, they make their money over in Germany. They don't gotta go outside. Everyone else, man, you try to break into boxing. We've seen it. 50 Cent, Jay-Z. Sure, Ray Leonard before that. It's hard to make it in the boxing business, start a new promotion, man. Like you said, main events, they were there at some point. It used to be called America Presents, right? Or weren't they working with Gary Shaw at some point? It was called, or was that, no, so excuse me, was that Dan Goosen? Oh yeah, and then there was Dan Goosen too, right? He was a good, decent promoter too.
There's always been smaller ones, but the big houses the reason why they don't last is because they don't realize how much effort and how much money you lose in the beginning. You lose money until they become champions because you got to pay for everything. You got to support this boxer and his family until he becomes a champion, if he becomes a champion. That's why, like Steve Kim said, the desert is littered with the bones of promotional companies that come and spend a lot of money.
It's a sea filled with sharks, man. Or it's a small pond with 3 sharks. And good luck trying to make it in there, man. Or trying to have some success. I'm actually surprised.
Dog eat dog world, and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear.
Oh. But you know what, man? It's interesting now that you mention it. Don King, he got old. And I think it's also, they said, because his wife got ill. So that's why he had to step off. That was one of the factors. Golden Boy, I'm surprised that they were able to get to where they are. Because I still remember when 2003, I want to say, they had Marco Antonio Barrera, and then he lost that very same year against Pacquiao. So they had a hard start. I think they also had Oscar Larios.
Golden Boy Oscar also has other income streams, like he's selling dick pills at gas stations now. Well,
is that right?
Oh yeah, no, it's the Oscar De La Hoya dick pills. You can buy them at gas stations.
Now, are they as hard as a spatula or?
like a fake the blue pills there, the fake Viagra.
I got you.
I'm serious. They sell them at gas stations.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. They sell them at gas stations,
How is that legal, by the way? To fucking sell hard on pills, isn't that dangerous? I mean, fucking Viagra, they need a prescription, right? What's the difference between that and Viagra?
Yes, prescription, because there's regulated narcotics in the blue pill. These things he's selling are just like Himoboc. It's just all natural stuff that's not regulated, so you can sell them over the counter.
Well, that's interesting. Good for Oscar, man. Making moves outside of boxing. I mean, he also has real estate, a shitload of real estate, right, in California?
I don't know about that. Probably.
Well, anyway,
he's got a soccer team, the Houston Dynamo. Then he's got.
Yeah.
I think he's into business with the dude from Saved by the Bell that does the podcast with Steve Kim. They got a tequila company up in Guadalajara, Mexico.
Good for him. Maybe that's why, like Jimmy said, that's why he's been able to that's why he was able to get Golden Boy off the ground. Golden Boy Promotions, actually. Shout out to Jack, the Kodo fan Nuff, for his contribution with the super chat. He says, "Do you think the war in Ukraine will motivate Loma?" I don't know how to answer that one, guys. What do you think?
It depends.
Hey, let me ask you something, Gonzalo. I know you don't like to get into it too much, but you were over there in the shit in Iraq. Are you physically tired when you come back from that? Because it's got to be stressful, right? Fucking explosions and hearing gunshots every day, or?
No, your body's conditioned to stay up for days.
Holy shit!
To stay up for days. Yeah, actually, your mind changes, and you mentally you become like really, really strong. I mean, because you're over there and you gotta get off. You gotta get your mind off of thinking that you're gonna die. So what you do, you stay real busy. You keep your mind real busy to not think about have those things like overwhelm your mind. So when you come back, you're physically like able to see further. Like your senses are more acute. You're like you got the eagle eyes. Yeah, it's one of those things, man. It sharpens you up.
Gonzalo, that's interesting you say that because I saw a video on YouTube where it's like a Vietnam vet. He said that when you spend time in the jungle in the beginning, you're lost, blah, blah, blah. But then once you're in the shit, day in and day out, the old instincts, the human instincts, because we are animals, the old instincts start coming out, the reflexes, like you said, the vision. You become acutely aware of when the jungle becomes silent. I mean, listen, I remember when I was in the shit over there in Nam, Da Nang, and I had to stay. I just talking about it now, it's coming back, man. It's coming back, man.
It can affect people differently, man. Everybody's different.
Excuse me sorry about that. I was having a moment. Oof, I had to shake give my shake. I had a shake.
Like
But yeah, go ahead.
Some people can see a lot of dead people and deal with dead bodies, and they're okay. Eventually, they'll get some trauma. And there's people that we're all wired different. That you see one dead body, and it traumatizes you forever.
That's right.
People are wired different. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's a pussy and that guy is. No, just people are different.
Yeah, like
some rando in the chat says,
when he was over there, he was pulling gold teeth out of everybody's mouth.
Come on, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Some rando says, thank you. Some rando says, thank you for your service, BDA. That's right. I was in Vietnam. I killed a lot of people. I'm not American, by the way. And I've never been in the military. And I was in Vietnam in 1996, but I did kill a lot of Vietnamese people. So, no, I'm kidding. Listen, I know people are going to go, what the fuck? That's the old...
aren't really the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's the old joke where you go, my uncle was in Vietnam. He killed 20 Viet Cong. And then you go, well, wait a minute. He was never in the military and he went over there in 1999. Who the fuck did he kill? I've made that joke before, by the way, so it's nothing new. But, man, let me tell you, Gonzalo, it's maybe you're different, though. Maybe that's not the norm for everybody. But like you said, when we talk about it, Lomachenko probably wasn't in the front lines. He was just patrolling in a low action area. So he should be.
It still could be stressing because you never know when you're gonna catch like incoming mortars, or a missile all of a sudden that is aimed at a building and you might be in that area. It's you never know when something's gonna like fall on your head. Actually, it's crazy. So that's gonna be mentally stressing too.
That's right.
Yeah, Lomachenko was from a port town that he didn't. It didn't catch as much fighting as some of the other places. But when you're a part of the militia, you can volunteer to do anything. Nobody can tell you no. They can suggest. Or let's say
you're sitting in a checkpoint inspecting vehicles. What keeps you from your mind running away from you, like always thinking, oh man, there's going to be a bomb in this car. And if not in this one, maybe that one.
Jeez.
It's like over there, walking in the streets of Iraq, you see a bunch of fucking trash everywhere. And all the time you're thinking, man, there's a fucking IED burrowed in between that garbage.
Yep.
It's one of those things, man.
You can just be standing there, dude. How many dudes you know as well as anybody, bro? How many guys have bought it just standing there all of a sudden out of nowhere, somebody lobbing a fucking mortar. Oof. Just one rocket. And those things are tricky because you can be standing there around 5 dudes and you're the only one who drops. Just one piece of shrapnel catches you in the head.
I see a lot of people making fun of me in the chat. I got to tell you, you come up here in the wintertime, see if you can catch me. I live in the cold. I'm made for the cold. I spent 20-something years here in the cold, getting acclimated to it. I hunker down in the snow. I only get stronger. So come at me. All right. What else was I going to say here? The connection's fucking up a little bit. Well, listen. We've got some, like I said, fantastic fights coming up. Saturday. Two fights. And then there's the gimmick fight between Silva and Jake Paul. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Don't forget, fellas, I got to tell you now, before we go, don't forget there's a good card from Japan on Monday, I believe. Is that Monday, November the 1st? Yes, indeed. No, excuse me, that's Tuesday. Tuesday, November the 1st from Saitama, Japan. So that's going to be in the morning. Kenshiro Teraji taking on Hiroguchi. That's going to be a fantastic fight. Then you get Jonathan Gonzalez taking on Iwata. Then there's the one that I'm also looking forward to the most, the second one. Junto Nakatani taking on Francisco Rodriguez. I think it's Francisco Rodriguez Jr. I think that's his actual name. But Francisco Rodriguez is the guy that a lot of people thought he beat Ioka. So, man, make sure to catch that fight. I'm making arrangements here to be able to go on the air in the morning after the fight. So make sure you check that one out, guys. All right?
Yeah, El Chihuas, I think he's from Ensenada or Mexicali, Mexico. Ensenada. El Chihuas, he's pretty good. He's been around for a long time.
What about the Gavel-Zordo fight? When's that taking place?
That is also in November, I believe, and that is on... I'm looking for...
The 5th, I think, 2 weeks from now. From this... a week and a half from now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the 5th of November. That's the zone via United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi. I'm telling you, man, Abu Dhabi, they're getting that money. Jimmy, can this
Guy Fox fight?
Who was that?
The Guy Fox fight.
The Guy Fox fight?
Yes, it's the guy. They're calling it the Guy Fox fight. The 5th of November.
Oh, okay. For Guy Fox night. Is that on November?
Yes. Yeah. Well, 5th of November. You know, the old rhyme. The 5th of November. The gunpowder treason.
Is that right? I don't know. I didn't know.
Yeah, Guy Fawkes. He tried he was going to blow up. He was the Protestant. I mean, a Catholic who was going to blow up the Protestant king. Guy Fawkes.
Interesting, man. Yeah, the mask guy, right? The guy from V for Vendetta.
Yes, remember? Yeah, the rhyme. The 5th of November.
I'm gonna check that out, man. I wasn't familiar with the story. Shout out to the Funktopus, by the way, for his contribution with the super chat. He says Lomachenko is the best since Floyd hung him up. I wish that he turned pro 5 years earlier. It's possible he could have eclipsed Floyd. Well, that's a big what if there, man. So shout out to the Funktopus for his contribution to the super chat. He still has got time, man. At least I would say 2 years. We'll see how he looks against Jermaine Ortiz. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, you know what? I forgot about that, guys. Crawford. So he's gonna be fighting on BLK Prime, and that same day though, there is the Teofimo Lopez versus Pedraza fight, which is gonna be on ESPN for free. Meanwhile, the other one, the Crawford fight, you gotta pay 35 buckaroos. So I don't see it doing all that well, man. Obscure network from a guy that's never been a pay-per-view star doesn't look good. But I think it's for him the onus is just on staying busy. I don't think they're expecting to break any pay-per-view records with that one. That, by the way, that same day, that's also the day of the Lopez versus Warrington fight. Leonardo Lopez versus Warrington via the zone from Leeds, England. So that's probably going to be around 6 p.m. Eastern time here. Fellas, with that being said, we do have to go. Anything else you guys want to say before we move on? Before we call it a night?
Boxing has been dead, and I don't think like a lot of people have been too motivated, aside from like all the rumors, the what do you say, chismes, the gossip. But hopefully it picks up this weekend with good fights to start getting back into it.
That's right. Yeah, boxing's got to start delivering, Gonzalo. I absolutely agree with you. And these fights are good, man. Lomachenko's an action fighter. Jermaine Ortiz too. What's the other one that we said? Zepeda versus Jojo. I think they're going to fight in the center of the ring. And Zepeda can crack. So it's going to be a good one, man. Oh, and we've got Robeisy Ramirez too, fighting on the undercard. He's taking on an Argentinian. And no, it's not one of those Argentinians that can crack. I think he's only got 9 knockouts out of 20-something wins. So I think this is just a bit of a stay busy fight for Ramirez. But at least he's fighting, and he's entertaining too. He puts his guard up and mows guys down. He's not looking to back foot bitch it. So very eager to see the fights on Saturday. I'm pumped up for those fights. Fellas, really appreciate you jumping on, as always. Got to give it up to Jimmy, Gonzalo, Chief, who was here as well earlier. Everybody that donated with the super chat. Everybody that called in as well. Shout out to you guys. Everybody that's listening right now and that was listening beforehand as well. I'm talking about Iceman. What about me? Dom, the Funktopus, Alex Jones, Danny, Lucy Goosey. What the fuck are these names? Scantis, Scantis, Sam, Dom, Easy Demas. Who else we got here? Well, we gotta go, but if you guys know who you are, the Chidlin Distributor, Iceman, Mark Languas, Jack, Dakota Fan Nuff. If I forgot anybody, it's because we gotta go. But thanks again, guys, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the fights on Saturday. We'll try to be back on Friday, another Open Lines Friday. Gotta come up with some subjects, like Gonzalo said, we're just recycling the same old shit over and over. Maybe we'll do a gimmick episode instead of a classic Open Lines where I'll just talk about whatever you want. Maybe we'll do a gimmick episode where we talk about.
Well, I think we need to get together, like you said, Mr. BDA, and lay down all the dates and the facts that we can throw anytime someone calls with the Dr. Haney. We need to scream the facts louder than they scream their lies.
You're absolutely right, man. Absolutely. That's a good point, man. We got to go back to that one. Hey, don't forget to hit the like on the way out, fellas. Hit the like, subscribe, spread the BDA gospel to the initiated. We are on the true path of the Crimson Cross, and once you're on that path, there is no stopping. Shout out to you, fellas. Have a good night. Take it easy.